be here.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, geeks and nerds and ambassadors everywhere, and welcome once again to the Ambassadorial Wing and another installment of Ambassadorial R&D, reaction and discussion. And tonight, we are going to be breaking down a film that a large portion of the Marvel fan base and the general public has been waiting for ever since it's announced several months ago, and that is, of course, Spider-Man No Way Home. And yes, we will be doing a full spoiler review because here on the Ambassadorial Wing, we do spoilers. And yes, it might get potentially offensive as well here on the Ambassadorial Wing. And I want to Zach killing me. Oh, Lord. And with me this evening, I have got three alums of the Ambassadorial Wing. You know them. You love them. Mr. Zach Leary, Ace Mowick, and Aaron of Aaron's World Order. And also, number one. Who does number two work for? Gentlemen, good evening, and thank you for being here tonight. And to everybody out there in the chat, everybody that's watching this live, make sure you smash that like button, share this out with all of your MCU and Marvel Universe friends, and tell them this is where the party is at tonight. So, gentlemen, we're not going to stand on a whole bunch of ceremony here because we never do in the Ambassadorial Wing. Let's jump into one of the main topics of the evening, and that is, of course, Spider-Man No Way Home. Now, to give my initial thoughts, and then we'll go around the horn here. I went and saw this yesterday afternoon after I got off work, and after two and a half hours, I was like, holy freaking crap, they stuck the landing with this trilogy. So, and honestly, I laughed, I cried, and I was thoroughly and totally entertained. This, I think, has to be one of the best Spider-Man trilogies that we have gotten since the Maguire trilogy. I think, honestly, this is probably a more consistently well-done Spider-Man trilogy compared to the Maguire trilogy, because honestly, the ending of the Maguire trilogy, it face planted itself at the end.
It did.
And I hate to say that, as much as I love Tobey Maguire as Peter Parker as that Spider-Man, the Spider-Man 3 just absolutely face planted. But this one,
It did.
That's Sony.
I honestly,
too much interference.
Studio interference.
Yeah, but in this instance, they let the directors and the writers work on these films, and what we got with No Way Home was, I think, a very satisfying, a very emotionally riveting, and a very entertaining conclusion to the Home trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
So
definitely the best of the MCU Spider-Man movies.
Oh yeah, for
yes.
sure.
Yeah, and looking at this, going all the way back to Civil War up to now, I am going to be a real contrarian. I might be a bit inflammatory. I'm going to say that Tom Holland is one of the best actors to portray Spider-Man, live action or animation, that we've gotten in a while. And I will say this, I think his arc and his journey as Peter Parker / Spider-Man was better than Henry Cavill's as Superman.
That's not saying much.
Yeah, it's true.
So, that being said, gentlemen, I yield the floor. Let's get into this. As a good friend of the channel would say, Mr. Tim Possible Tim's Talks. Let's get hot and sweaty about this, but just let's not get too close to each other. So, anyways, gentlemen, I yield the floor for the time being. It is yours. Who wants to go first?
I just want to start by saying, if we are offensive, I'm only going to be offensive about people's mothers.
Are you gonna say that they look like that they're a hamster?
No, I'm going to say they smell of elderberries. Oh, sorry. And your father smelled of elderberries!
Okay.
All
right. Got that out of your system now, Ace?
Yep.
All right. Like I said, gentlemen, the floor is yours. Who wants to go first?
Okay. Well, I'll just say this. The film is a pretty experimental film. I mean, it's pretty shocking to see a big studio movie like this be such a bizarre, in a good way, crazy idea. I mean, it's an insane idea. And it's refreshing to see a multi-million dollar, $50 million budget, whatever budget film it is, be based around such a crazy idea. I mean,
yeah, the
Spider-Man...
multiverse is a concept that you would think a studio is going to stumble, because executives don't really understand fiction themselves. They just say, okay, we know what decisions to make. Just listen to us, directors, unless the directors have so much control.
Multiverse is a hard concept to do in on film or on TV. Like, you could do it easily in the comics. I mean, the Arrowverse, they do it. They could, but I don't watch the CW shows anymore. But it's a very hard concept to really do a multiverse thing, and I think MCU is doing a pretty damn good job doing it right now.
Well, it's not just that, but it's the whole concept of the entire thing is based off of Spider-Man's selfish little, spell with Doctor Strange. Fuck the whole world up.
Okay, I'm not going to say that. That was not selfish.
It wasn't. It wasn't selfish. It wasn't angry.
Yeah, it was more so for his friends than for himself.
Yeah.
Well, let me rephrase it. It's a small thing that ends up destroying the entire, fabric of reality.
Yes. Yeah.
You would have shut up.
Let's put it in perspective
just real
here.
quick.
I'm sorry. I gotta say this. Let's put it in perspective here. You have a 17-year-old asking a wizard. Sorcerer.
Yeah, it was a
sorcerer. Yeah, sorry, that I corrected my sorcerer, who is like Tony Stark, a narcissist, and has a
not as much of one
nature, and blames literally, instead of owning up to the fact that instead of sitting down and talking with Peter about how the spell should have gone out, he went ahead and just decided he knew what was best. I mean, look at the mirror area where he beat him because Strange thought he knew everything because he was in control. And then Peter figured out it's all basic geometry. It's all math. He understood it. And it was like he beat him, and he, I'm sorry, like I said, he put him in his place. That was one of the reasons why Tony Stark and Strange couldn't get along, because they both were egotistical narcissists.
Fair point. Except Tony's more of an egotistical narcissist, and while we're on the,
he started out that way, but he changed.
I didn't find out Strange being narcissist as
he is
much in this film. Not as much as in the past films. I think in this film he was more of a level-headed with Peter than he would be with Tony Stark, because Peter's a kid.
And here's the thing. Stark did start off as a narcissist, but he got better over time, and his character most definitely evolved by the time of end.
I mean, Doctor Strange himself, he was a narcissist when he was a Doctor Strange, when he was a surgeon.
Yes, Strange was very much. Strange very much was a know-it-all and everything, especially when he was a neurosurgeon and very gifted and talented. Yeah. Marcus, you keep pestering me, I will boot you. I have the power to do it, so don't Don't mess with me tonight. I see you. I know you're there. I saw your comment, but I'm not bringing it up and I'm not addressing it. We're talking about the movie, not your cockamamie theories. So, anyway, moving on.
Since you mentioned cockamamie theories, you want to hear a stupid cockamamie theory I had that I was glad I was wrong about?
Yes.
Well, when the trailer first came out, I'm going to admit I never saw the Doctor Strange movie. The most I knew of him was from Endgame and Infinity War, and just a couple, YouTube videos. But from the trailer, a couple of my friends who actually saw the movie and really knew the comic character, they said he seems like he's acting out of character. And I made the theory that since the trailer seemed to make it seem like the movie was going to follow the One More Day storyline to an extent, the infamous story, I should say. I thought maybe that's not Doctor Strange.
Yeah, the Mephisto storyline. We all know the One More Day.
Yeah, I thought it might be Mephisto in disguise as Doctor Strange. Is what I'm getting at.
It was based off that, just not with Mephisto involvement.
No,
yeah,
you're probably not going to see Mephisto show up.
Yeah, I realized that, and I'm glad I didn't, because believe me, less association One More Day is the best.
You got to understand, Mephisto in the MCU is basically the devil.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think we could see him in MCU, but not before. And I do think we're gonna get a Ghost Rider, like the Johnny Blaze version of Ghost Rider in MCU next 2 to 5 years.
Who do you think would be a good? Who do you think could play Johnny Blaze?
I mean,
a real Johnny Blaze.
I don't know, and right now I don't want to get into a bunch of theorizing. I want to focus on the movie.
I'm sorry.
I want to focus on the movie in front of us, not on theories 5 years down the road. I'm sorry, we don't go mad here. We talk about facts, not fiction. Although this is fiction.
What did
I was about to say,
Ambassador? What did you think when the whole interaction and chemistry between the Spider-Men?
Oh yeah. Honestly, I really, I was wondering when. Again, this is full spoilers, so if you people haven't seen this movie yet, click away now because we're doing full spoilers tonight. We don't go halfway here. And if you heard some jingling in the background, it's my cat playing with his spinner. So just forgive him. He knows not what he does.
You gave your cat a fidget spinner? Does he have ADD?
No. No, Ace. It's a
Stay
spinner.
Stay on target.
Shut up.
I'm sorry.
Anyway, no, it's a cat spinner. It's got little balls with bells in them. So if you hear some jingling in the background, like I say, it's just my cat.
It's all good.
Honestly, I really, I was wondering when, because I didn't trust any leaks. I trusted what I was going to see when I saw it. And when they brought in Toby and Andrew, I was like, yeah, this was a good way to do it. He was going to need them at this point in the movie, considering what happens. And yes, full spoilers.
Yeah,
I cried when Aunt May died. I did. I cried. I was
like, I thought to myself, wow, they're actually ballsy enough to do that.
No, I mean, I think one of the things was, this was okay. Let's take our Spider-Man from our 3 Spider-Man we have: the Maguire, the Garfield, the Holland. Uncle Ben. We never heard Uncle Ben in the Tom Holland era. So it might be he passed away, but not from something that was a response
Hang on
to
here and let
what Spider-Man did, unlike what happened in the other one. When you have Tobey Maguire, he let it go by, and then he found what he thought was killer, and then you had in Andrew Garfield, he never found the person. And then when you had the whole thing when they were talking about their losses, he was talking about Maguire was talking about his uncle, and then Garfield talked about how he, couldn't save Gwen Stacy, and then that whole scene.
Yeah.
Spoiler at the end, the whole point and I know you know this. I'm sorry, I got to go in this because I thought this was the most beautiful scene in the movie. MJ is falling.
Yes.
Tom Holland goes to try and save her, gets hit by the glider, Goblin's glider, and you see that look on Garfield's face.
Yeah.
And the way he jumps down and does all that. And then when he rescues her, and it's like the look, the just
Sigh of relief.
yes, thank you.
Yeah.
He was able to redeem himself.
You know what's interesting? You know what's interesting about not Tom Holland not having a Ben Parker uncle? Remember at the ending where everybody forgets who he is because of the way he has to do. We'll probably get more detail about that. He goes to the cemetery when Happy Hogan shows up. You don't see a Ben Parker grave. You just see him look grieving over his aunt's grave.
Which
I noticed that too.
Yeah.
Yes,
I think is honestly, I think what they did with Aunt May having her just be a single parent, I thought was good. I thought that was a good move, or being the solo guardian. And there being no Uncle Ben in this version, where you have an Uncle Ben in both the Raimi and both the Maguire and the Garfield trilogies. And honestly, for me, I think Aunt May was enough. And, she was spunky, she was feisty, she was funny, she was wise, she was kind of a mentor. She was a mentor character.
And hip.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
what? 30 years younger than the previous version.
Yeah, even if she was.
I think maybe what we thought maybe Uncle Ben died when we first saw him at Tom Holland in Civil War, but we never heard him. So he might have been somebody who passed away prior of another thing, nothing related.
I think he didn't exist.
He may not, and you know what? He may not have, because the gravestone thing would make sense.
With a movie like this, a character like this,
but I mean, when
she
said,
Geek, let Zach get his out, and then you can.
No problem.
It's redundant to do the same thing over and over again. We've seen Uncle Ben die twice. We've seen him die in terms of theatrically. We've seen him die probably, many times in the comics. So why do we need to see it again?
It's like Batman. Every time we have a Batman, you see his parents die in his origin movies. Or whatever.
They took liberties with the new one in terms of kind of speeding along the introduction, which I think is a good idea.
I like how they did it with him being on. One of the things I really liked was it was like the Empire State Building. Where does he go when he wants to?
When he needs to think.
Yes, and it was like, for me it's the Empire State Building. For the other one it's the Chrysler Building, and it was like, where? And then
it's Midtown High.
Jay and Ned go over there, and then the other Spider-Man, and he's broken. I mean, he's really broken right now, and they try to help heal him, but they understand where his pain is coming from. Remember, they've been through this pain long before he has. You got to remember, Tom Holland is playing a 17-year-old Spider-Man, whereas we're looking at Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield as, say, the current age they are now, playing it. And remember, when Andrew Garfield is Spider-Man, says, I couldn't save Gwen Stacy, my MJ, and I stopped pulling my punches.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that really, it was like, whoa. I mean, what I thought was really great about this movie, I'm going to be honest, is it did something that I don't think even Sam Raimi and the Amazing Spider-Man did. It actually gave closure.
Yes.
Yeah.
To all three of them, basically.
Raimi I think Raimi did have an intention to go to a fourth movie because there are leaks of a supposed script online. So
It
I
was
think
supposed to be a fourth
it
movie.
was
That's confirmed. Yes.
yes. So there was going to be
It's supposed
closure
to be a
more
lizard.
so than the
Lizard
yeah
with
and,
vulture. I think it was
yeah
a lizard.
and
But I like how some of the things were they kept it in continuity as far as the movies. Like I fought a guy in a rhinoceros suit.
Mm-hmm.
I'm lame. I want to fight an alien.
there was some continuity errors. So I'll get to those in a second. But I just want to say I think they were at one point in I think in what was it Homecoming there is a suggestion of Uncle Ben when Peter's talking to Ned after Ned finds out and he says something like I don't want Aunt May to find out after everything that's happened. What is everything that's happened other than him getting spider powers?
Yeah.
That's where it seems to suggest something's happened that would have affected her and him in a large way, but it's not specified. And I get they didn't want to just repeat the Uncle Ben story, but as someone who's played the PS4 game, the first one, they didn't have to show the death of Uncle Ben or have a flashback. Like they might have mentioned it once or twice, but because they know we've seen it, we don't need to beat the person over the head with it again.
Well, it's interesting you bring that up about the PS4 Spider-Man because what was Aunt May doing in that game? Running a food vendor.
Yeah,
Feast.
right, and she was working at Feast in this movie.
Spoilers, guys, she dies in it too. And it was very emotional.
Yeah, in the game.
scene.
Yeah. Oh, my gosh,
The game was. I thought the game was ballsy. The movie was ballsy for doing it, but the game did it first.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
I'll say this. I think the Aunt May death in this was more realistic than some of the previous Spider-Man major deaths, where let me catch my breath is a very realistic death. Just saying, let me just hold on. She doesn't know she's dying.
No,
she doesn't.
Right?
She
So
figures she's
very
okay.
in shock.
Very realistic. She doesn't know she's dying, and I think the first thing she says to Peter when she sees the blood on his hand is, "Are you okay?"
Yeah,
which is very parental. So very impactful and
touching.
Yeah, and touching.
Yeah.
I think specifically because of the realism factor. It doesn't feel like a comic book death. It feels like a real death.
Yeah. I do want to give number one a chance to give his thoughts because so far he hasn't had a chance to say a word. So number one, your thoughts on No Way Home?
Yeah, to me, this was basically a complete fan service movie with the member berries basically done right in it. All the callbacks that they did when the crowd was going crazy once Andrew Garfield first came through the little portal thing, and then Tobey Maguire second, and then they did their little shoot the web at when Toby shot his web at Andrew Garfield and on the table. Everybody flipped out at that. So yeah, and the Chinese lady inside the house, is freaking out, when she's seeing all this and stuff like that. So yeah, to me that this was, a complete, bringing together, basically, all the Spider-Man franchises together, and then, but including the right memories that were, because Garfield specifically says, I lost Gwen when they're all getting together after with Tom Holland's Spider-Man there, each of their particular losses that they've, experienced and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I thought yeah, the emotions in this were really well done. In the whole movie, and yeah, it had a proper ending, and everybody was, even freaking out with, the 2 end credit scenes.
Mephisto.
I guess more Venom.
The hell
one
is he talking about?
Doctor Strange one. But,
He's trolling. Just ignore him, Zach. I'm going to.
But
So
One of the
he's trolling.
one of the more interesting things I liked about it was when you really look at it at the end of, Aunt May's character, is she was really, she was always his, well, for lack of a better term, North Star, his guiding light.
Yes.
Always, no matter what, supported him, worked with him. And, when she said, I'm going to be honest, of all the 3 other movies where we've heard with great power comes great responsibility, I thought she said it the best. The interpretation the best.
Yeah.
Because it was where the other ones was just one movie. This was over the course of many, many movies.
Yes.
And it was kind of like, I guess I want to say, Avengers Assemble in Endgame, when we finally got to hear the words. But to hear it from Aunt May, after everything they'd gone through, everything done, and even though, she's dying and she doesn't even realize it, the point is where her to say, with great, he's like, it's not my issue. And she's, when he's saying, it's not my responsibility. And she is scolding him like, no, that's not how I raised you. She wasn't an aunt. She was a mom at that point. And, when she said, with great power comes great responsibility, it was just, and then when we saw, the other Spider-Mans, the Maguire and Garfield, and when she said to me, with great power comes, and great responsibility. How do you know? That's what Uncle Ben said. So Uncle Ben, both of their lives, great power comes with great responsibility, was right before they died. And that was the same thing with his Aunt May. That
with Garfield
all together.
When Martin Sheen said it, he didn't say it in those exact words. He said it in a roundabout way, but it was the same message.
Well, I was going to say, this is what I hate about the saying, oh, Spider-Man is Iron Man Jr. I'm like, guys, yes, Iron Man Jr. was a mentor. Iron Man was a mentor. Aunt May is a mentor. Happy Hogan, in some sense, is a mentor. Doctor Strange is not really a mentor, but this is about building up as him having idols and people to look up to, until a point where he's ready to be on his own.
Yes.
Well,
go ahead, Zach.
Speaking of Happy Hogan, he had one of the funniest moments in this movie where Spider-Man is downstairs on the phone with MJ. And he says, Happy let me have his room. He's down here, and it pans over, and there's like a half a second shot of Happy passed out in the recliner with the sleep apnea mask on. I fucking made me laugh in the theater.
Well,
it made me laugh because my grandma has that exact same one.
Yeah.
What about the part where he thought he opened to Peter's room and there's MJ and Peter was like having a shirt off. They thought they're gonna have sex.
Oh,
yeah, Happy was funny. Happy was funny character.
Okay. Yeah. All right. I'm going to go a bit of a rant for just a minute, guys. So just bear with me and let me get this out. I have liked Tom Holland's performance and portrayal of Peter Parker / Spider-Man since he was introduced in Civil War. He has grown and he has evolved as a character. And as I said before, I think his journey and his character arc as Peter Parker / Spider-Man in these 3 films, and I say specifically just these 3 films, I do count the other films that he appeared in cameos, but with these 3 films that focused on him, I think this is the best arc for Peter Parker that we've gotten in a long time. And I quite frankly am sick and tired of the people who hate on Tom Holland just because he had a mentor like Tony Stark. Because him under his
are you sure it's not because he's British?
Oh, guys, let the ambassador. This is his show. Let him finish.
Let me finish, Zach.
Wait,
no, I was.
So, I have I've had my fill of these people calling him Trash Holland. I've had my fill of these people calling him Iron Spider or Iron Man Jr. He is not Iron Man Jr. Iron Man was a mentor. Spider-Man has had many team-ups and many mentors throughout his various adaptions throughout his history. It
when
is
he's
a
an
common
adult too,
thread.
when he's not a high school
He's-
character, when he's not in college, he always had mentors.
Yes.
Hey, Ambassador, what did you think about a couple of those? There were a couple of moments in No Way Home. I kind of wanna hit up with you. The one where you had Andrew Garfield and Electro talking to each other, and then you had Tobey Maguire and Dr. Octavius talking to each other. I mean, those were really nice closure moments for those characters, you know, because you got to remember they were for those characters, the Spider-Men, they're all dead, but now they're going to get back to wherever they're from and get another chance. And I think that really helped build some closure for them.
And I will address that in a minute, Geek. Just let me finish my rant,
problem.
please.
Sorry. No.
I've really, this is a young actor who was offered this opportunity to play this very iconic character. And I think he had some very big shoes to fill because of the other actors who had portrayed this character before in terms of Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire. Now, obviously, Garfield is Maguire is a hard act to follow if you consider just how iconic the Raimi trilogy is. It was our first live action, quality, high production trilogy focused around Varys and anybody else that's in the chat. If you want to join the stream, the link is up there. Use it. And I think these people that have just bashed on Holland from the jump is just completely and utterly unfair. This kid came into this role, which is a huge opportunity for him. And I think that he has been given he was given an opportunity that most of us would jump at to play an iconic character like Spider-Man. And I will say this, I cannot wait to see what they do with him in the next set of movies that follow after this. Obviously, he'll be going into college now. So
About time.
Spider-Man 4, remember me.
Aren't you
And-
doing a
Finish-
television show with him?
Actually, Ambassador, I want to say this. What I really enjoyed most about this movie is that they gave all three of the Spider-Mans. They didn't treat him with disrespect. They didn't give him crap. They treated him with respect. And the chemistry between all three, I would love to see all three of them again.
Honestly, as I was starting to say, I think the way they handled the introduction or the entry for Maguire and Garfield was at the right time in this film. This is when he needed them most, not when he was just going up against the villains one by one. And I will say this, I liked how they introduced the villains even. You got Octavius first, which we knew was going to come, and we knew that we were going to get Green Goblin. We were going to get Osborn. There were obviously the rumors that there was going to be the other three villains. There was going to be Electro and the Lizard and Sandman. And I was happy to see Thomas Hayden Church come back as Flint Marko as the Sandman. And I think I will say this, I think all of their portrayals, all the villains, the returning villains' portrayals they were handled very, very well. And to see, the thing that I loved about the scene where they're all in the lab at the university or the school or wherever they're at, trying to figure out how to fix the villains, fix what was wrong with them in the first place, I thought honestly was a great flip of the script of how Spider-Man traditionally handles his villains. In this case, Tom is like, the MCU Spider-Man is like, I want to try and help them because Aunt May is pushing him to be like, maybe we need to try and fix them rather than just trying to beat them.
Okay.
And go ahead,
Yeah.
Zach.
From a philosophical point of view, and this may be an
Mhm.
interesting concept and something that I think makes the film an interesting, table film, is that whole thing correct? Is Aunt May right? Do these people deserve to be redeemed? Is it worth doing? Is it worth the risk? Because I would argue that it's not. I would
But for
argue that
Spider-Man,
Tom.
no. But Spider-Man's
Well,
always
hold
been
on.
like that.
I would argue
Just hang
that
it.
Tom and May are incorrect. We're talking about people who are essentially mass murderers. Do they deserve to be redeemed, and do they deserve to be saved and their lives spared? I'm not so sure. It makes for the case that Tom's Peter Parker is the most virtuous Spider-Man that we've seen so far,
Yeah.
and that the other two Spider-Men have, over the course of time, reached that same point, right? But
Yeah.
are they correct? I mean, who's right and who's wrong? I mean, it's an interesting question.
Yes,
But
and
Spider-Man's always
honestly,
been
I'm
like
glad you
that.
brought it up, Zach.
That's a good
ahead.
point.
When
That
you-
Spider-Man's always been like that.
When you look at you got to look at Spider-Man. Remember, as I think I told Ambassador earlier, Spider-Man, the whole concept is born out of tragedy, similar to
Yes.
Batman. But the whole point is it's all about tragedy and how you deal with it. Now, what is right or wrong? Well, that's a question that, well, for Ambassador and I personally, we would say that is judged by Christ and God. Where your morality or ethical or those standards come, we can't necessarily. Ambassador, you know where I'm
Well,
going
it
with this,
depends.
right?
Well, it depends, Geek. It may be judged by God, but if it causes the deaths of hundreds of people, maybe you should take some personal accountability. Did you see what I'm saying?
No,
Well,
Kinda
I
did. They
do
kinda did.
understand
I'm
what you're saying too, Zach.
you're talking about who judges.
Yeah,
At the
but
end
if you
of the
let
day-
guys like that wreak havoc, right, that's a personal choice, right? Does that make sense?
No, it's not.
Well,
a
now-
personal
It
choice.
is.
I mean,
Now you're sounding like Frank Castle, but I just want to say, but keep in mind, if we're just going by the movies, who's really murdered amongst Spider-Man's villains? Obviously, the Goblin. Ock killed a few people, but that's partly because of
He
the
went to the
AI,
toilet to
like in the
kill-
hospital. Yeah,
Yeah, but-
and
Yeah,
Electro,
Lizard-
I don't think he ever really killed anybody. Neither did Lizard and Sandman. I couldn't
was
say
Ock.
other than Uncle
He was
Ben.
criminal.
Other than Uncle Ben.
Ock would have killed
Sandman
the
was a
whole
criminal.
fucking planet, though.
Yeah.
Yo,
Right.
Lizard
But
killed Captain Stacy.
Partly because the AI influencing him.
Yeah, but
And I just
we're dealing with the version of the character who is still under that influence.
Yeah,
the beginning.
but here's the thing. Each of these individuals did not start out inherently evil or bad
Yes, you're right.
people. They
Yeah,
were
it was because of
they were-
science.
it was because of science. Yes. Now here's
Well,
the thing. They were now I
not all
would
of them,
say
sorry.
of all of them, the most deranged or the most dangerous of the bunch is of course Green Goblin, most
Mhm.
definitely. He was the most volatile of them. If you notice in No Way Home, yeah, obviously Octavius or Dr. Octopus, he is going after Peter and he doesn't care who gets in his way. And yes, that is to be condemned, absolutely. But also you have to realize that he is not in his right mental frame of mind, and when they finally are able to repair that chip and plug it in, and he's like, it's so quiet now because he's in control of his faculties again.
my son brought that up to me. My son brought that up to me because he, after we saw the movie, and he had seen the other Sam Raimi's, he was like, "Oh, Dad, did you know the tentacles had different personalities?" I was like, "Yes, son, I did." He goes, "Oh, well, yeah, and he was going through all that, and he was very knowledgeable of it. And it was like people, took references from this. I'm sorry, Ambassador. That was kind of nice
that's
talk
all
my
right.
son
It's
and I
fine.
had on the way home.
I have a counter argument. I have
Okay.
a counter argument, which is
Present it.
does bestowing someone with godlike power corrupt them, and we can. So you have the instance of Doc Ock. I think is one true instance of a good man who was corrupted, and
What about Lizard?
that's
Lizard's
really
good.
shown by
I
what happens
disagree.
to him within the film. Is once he has essentially his freedom back from the machine, he does the right thing. Okay, so
Yes.
that's an instance of a guy who was essentially a good guy from the outset. But with the character like Jamie Foxx or some of these other characters, I would say Sandman is an opportunist, and that's pretty clear in the film as well.
No, he's
Yeah.
desperate. No, he's desperate. No,
No, he's an opportunist.
I'm sorry,
Wait a minute.
Sandman is desperate.
Wait,
He wants to see.
Wait.
Yeah, let him finish. Let him finish.
Sandman is an opportunist. Just take a look at the way he switches teams throughout the film. He helps Peter at the beginning, and then he switches over to Electro right away.
Because he didn't
Yeah,
trust
right,
Peter.
yeah, because
Yeah,
he's-
well, you could say a desperate opportunist, but that's not really a distinction. But
yes, it
with-
is.
with a character
From my
like-
point of view,
Honestly,
it
I
is.
think there is a distinction there because a desperate man who is
Let me, Ambassador.
I'll just say,
It's-
always
let
think
me-
about
let
what's
me
his
get
daughter.
this.
He was thinking about his daughter.
It was
That's all he was
very,
thinking
it was
about.
very clearly stated.
He-
It's very clearly stated. He wanted to get home to his daughter.
Yeah.
You're a father who wants to get home to your daughter. You'll do anything for it.
Yeah.
Well, he's
His
also a
dying
murderer.
daughter, might I add.
Huh?
He's also a murderer,
It falls
but
as-
that's not the point that I
Jesus
was
Christ, I
making.
don't care if he's a murderer. I'm talking about the fact that he's a father who wants to get back home to his daughter.
It follows his arc
That
in
was the whole
Spider-Man
point
3.
of Spider-Man 3.
Yeah.
Go ahead, George. Let George have the floor, guys. He hasn't had a chance to say
Yeah,
anything,
George,
and then number one,
well,
and everything will give him a chance too. Go ahead, gentlemen.
I will say they follow these villains' arcs 100% on the mark. Like as a geek just said about like Sandman, this is a man who's been desperate where he was robbing banks for his daughter in Spider-Man 3. And like he's not like a bad person, but he's had bad luck and he's had to do like bad stuff just for his family. But I really like how like they paid attention to the detail of these villains. And also like Oscorp is not in the MCU as of yet, but yet 4 out of 5 of these villains are tied to Oscorp.
Yes.
I find that to be very interesting because I remember one thing people used to complain about the Amazing Spider-Man movies was every villain was created by Oscorp. And now like all the villains in this movie were basically tied to Oscorp except for Sandman.
I think that's because the Amazing movies take a lot from the Ultimate Spider-Man universe because, you know, Ock and Goblin and a few other villains do come from Oscorp in that universe.
Oh,
And I like-
agree.
And I like what you said about how each of the villains kind of, you know, in this movie they follow how the characters were depicted in the previous movies, and I agree with that, especially with Norman Osborn, because one thing I was kind of curious of, and when he said it, his flair, which is basically him following that Randian philosophy that Steve Ditko, the co-creator of Spider-Man, believed in. You know, that whole thing about like, oh gods, there's 8 million people in this area, and they exist for the sole purpose of lifting on their shoulders the exceptional few. You and me, we're exceptional. Like that whole philosophy, which is the philosophy of the quote unquote the virtue of selfishness.
I like I said, when it came to like William Dafoe and especially William Dafoe, I mean, this was 18, 19 years after he played this character, and he just jumped in right back into it like it was nothing. I mean, I don't know how he did it, but it was just brilliant. The way he would switch between those roles, between Norman Osborn and the Green Goblin. Oh, man, I got chills. But what I really got chills was, you know what, Ambassador, the one thing that gave me the most chills was when they did the jump and they all did their own signature Spider-Man landing.
I know.
Oof.
So I want to let Zach finish his point from just a minute ago, and then number one, I'm gonna let you have the floor. So Zach, go ahead, my bud.
Well, what I was trying to say with the villains is, the film also poses the question: does power corrupt you, or does it reveal who you truly are? If you take a look at Tom Holland's Spider-Man, a guy bestowed with great power, and with the other two Spider-Men, they used their power for virtue. a guy like Electro is a great example of what I'm talking about. A guy who, in the film, I think portrayed great by Jamie Foxx. What was really interesting about the Electro characters, he seemed like a real person. He seemed like a real guy that just happened to have this awesome power. And what did he do with it? Does it reveal you or does it corrupt you? It's an interesting choice.
Well,
Interesting
Electro, you have to remember, Electro Major Spider-Man 2 had nobody. He was treated unfairly. He had to work on his birthday. He was kind of like basically somebody that
he was resentful.
It was pushover. He was a big fan of Spider-Man.
He was a guy who he was actually a good guy. I mean, really, Garfield Spider-Man said he was one of the greatest guys I ever met. Really good guy. And then he got the power.
Hang on, Ace. Hang on.
Oh, sorry.
Number one, I'm going to give you a chance to give your thoughts, and then we'll go with Ace, and then George, and then I'll come back to myself. So, go ahead. Number one, floor is yours.
Yeah, I mean, to me, they did all these villains right. They told, and I like, that Tom Holland's Spider-Man doesn't want to kill them. He just wants to make things right. By getting them back to where they really belong and everything. So I like how they altered in a way that a villain, even though they're a villain, they still are not in the right place and time, basically. So it's all about just getting them back to where they really belong. And I'm glad that they told that kind of a story in this. Yeah.
Now the Lizard, I categorize the Lizard not like. I mean, when Kirk Connors became the Lizard, Lizard was his whole persona. He was different than Osborn. Like Osborn, he could become Green Goblin, or Green Goblin could revert back to Osborn persona. But when Kirk Connors becomes a Lizard, Kirk Connors is not there anymore. He's gone unless he turns back into Kirk Connors. So the Lizard, remember the Lizard, Kirk Connors, his goal was to do good with a way for people that have missing limbs. His goal was to have with reptiles, because reptiles could replicate limbs and stuff, right? Could regrow their limbs, right? His goal was to use that to help people that have missing limbs from the army, whatever, from the being war, because he was a war veteran himself, I believe, Kirk Connors. And
but his creepy off the grid, final form of trying to do that is wrong and unjust, right?
But that's the Lizard. That's not Kirk Connors. That's the Lizard.
Well, but does it really matter?
Yes, right? I think it kind of does. If there's a serum, if you could cure him, I think it matters.
Well,
here's
look at a real life version of one of these characters. Does pick any serial killer you want.
But here's the thing. Go ahead, Zach.
No, go ahead.
Well, here's the thing. You're conflating a serial killer with a fictionalized supervillain, essentially. None of these characters are pathological. They are driven, they are ambitious, they are highly intelligent, they are highly creative, but they're not none of them are the thing is, none of them are inherently evil. And that's what makes them such interesting characters. Is I put them all in kind of the same realm as, say, one of my favorite Batman villains, and that is, of course, Mr. Freeze. He was not inherently evil. He was
Two-Face is a good one too.
Yeah, and I don't want to get off on a big tangent here. I want to stick with characters that were specifically scientists, because if you think about it...
Sorry, Ambassador, real quick, check the private chat, because I'm dropping off. And
that's fine, bud.
Private chat. That's all.
Okay. All right.
Later. Okay, it's gone.
All right, later, geek.
Peace.
So, the thing for me is, the majority of these villains are scientists, which means that they are people of reason, of intellect, and they aren't, for me at least, they're not inherently bad people. They're using their intellect to do good things, but unfortunately, due to circumstances that were either within or outside of their control, they are damaged, they are broken, and they are corrupted into something that they most likely would not ever want to be. Now, ambition and intellect can often drive a person to do things that they would not normally inherently do. And I think if you take, for example, Otto Octavius, which I think of all the villains, he's by far one of my favorites. I liked all of these villains in this film. I mean, the thing is, yes, these are men that have done things that we view as morally objective.
Abhorrent.
Yes. But at the same time, we have to understand that they are not pure evil. They are not a villain, say, in the same realm as Thanos or Darkseid or Kang the Conqueror or any of these
Carnage.
other big...
I would say
Carnage.
Thanos. I know, even though Thanos is genocide, I would not say he's pure evil either.
Well, in the MCU version, yes. In the Marvel universe, in the main Marvel comic universe,
Yeah, agree there.
he is a little more of the mustache twirling villain. But what they did with Thanos in the MCU was they made his motivation a little more relatable, a little more understandable, and I think while we would not agree with it, we can to a certain degree understand his motivation. So
Thanos wanted to date death. He couldn't just take her out for coffee in a movie.
Exactly. So, but I think that's, what this movie, and I think I'm glad that Zach has brought this point up, honestly, is these villains have existed in the Marvel universe, both in the printed page and now in cinema, both in the before the MCU and now within the MCU. And what they did with these characters within this story is to show that they are ultimately human and that they are broken and that it takes the combined intellect of all three Peters to fix them. It doesn't just take one of them, it takes all of them. And I have to admit, I love the scene in the laboratory. There's some really good, quick, quippy, funny dialogue within that scene. But there's also some very heartfelt and very genuine moments in there as well. And I think that's what the character of Spider-Man gives you an opportunity to do. So, and I
have one brief response to that, and we can move on from the philosophical stuff. Sure. Is in my mind, it doesn't matter what a person has been through; it matters what they do. Okay, that's I think could be the difference between our mindset. Is you could easily see, any number of Marvel heroes take a dark path based on what has happened to them, and yet they chose to do the opposite. Right. So I guess that's the difference of opinion there, but we can move on from that.
Yeah. And and Zach, honestly, I am glad you brought up this point because it was a good valid point. It was a good discussion because when you've got a movie like this that incorporates all of the major villains from all of the, except for Venom, all the major villains from the cinematic Spider-Man films that we've gotten since 2002, it gives you a good opportunity to look back on these characters and say, okay, what they did with these villains.
All right, give me this though. Vulture is a piece of shit guy, right? A piece of shit human being. Okay, can we agree? Right? He's a piece of shit. Yeah.
Right? I would say he's definitely an opportunist. I think he's more. I think he's more of the He is more opportunistic of any of the others, but at the same time, his opportunism is for a motivation that I think we all can understand.
He's got a house. He's got a family.
He's trying. His biggest
And he's-
project ever got taken over by the
damage control. Oh,
Yeah.
and we'll get into the Department of Damage Control in a little bit, but I want to give Ferris and Number One and anybody else who hasn't had a chance to say their piece on this film a chance to. So, gentlemen, welcome, and Ferris, thank you for popping in. Appreciate it. So, guys, the floor is yours.
Well, one thing I was gonna say earlier. I kind of lost my train of thought on it, but oh yes, first right off the bat with what you said about how Tom Holland got kind of unfairly treated by people, and I agree. Tom Holland got unfairly treated. However, like my complaint isn't Tom Holland the actor. My complaint is the writing. But I could say the same thing about Andrew Garfield. I mean, the first Amazing Spider-Man, it's flawed. I mean, it's a pretty good movie. He puts in a good performance, even though I think he's a little too cocky, like even before he's Spider-Man. But it's pretty a solid movie, except for the ending, which just does what it does to say, oh, it's not exactly like the first one. Aha, see what we did there. And the second one kind of, studio meddling once again.
Ace, when have you seen another Mark Webb film aside from that?
Well, I'm not going to lie. I haven't. I have been curious to see that 500 Days of Summer just to see what it is, because it's a supposed deconstruction of the rom-com genre. And I think, okay, that sounds like it'd be an interesting concept to see. But other than that, I've only seen the two Amazing Spider-Man movies that he did. I'm not criticizing him.
They had a no-name director for him.
Yeah, but my question is, did he write it or did he just direct it?
That I don't know.
He did for Spider-Man? For Spider-Man?
Yeah, like I'm just the movie side. I'm not talking comics. Okay.
He just directed the two major Spider-Man movies.
My problem's with the writing, and that can even affect the first Raimi movie, because the writing was affected in the final one because of studio meddling. They said use Venom.
That really is a problem for you, because you could have a great director do a great job with bad writing.
Yes, that's true.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. I completely agree with that.
Fuck up good writing, right? So
yeah, I agree with that sentiment.
So, Ferris, your thoughts, my friend?
Okay, hi Ambassador, hey Zach, hey George, and nice to meet the rest of you, Ace, Number One, and Aaron for a first time. So yeah, of course, for No Way Home, it's a really good, conclusive to the Homecoming trilogy, because this trilogy is basically called the Home trilogy, and yeah, I don't know like why it has so many homes on it, but I guess for a conclusion to the Home trilogy, as I would say, it's really good, because especially by the end of the movie, like how he went from being using a lot of the Stark tech to basically going back to traditional Spider-Man. And that's kind of like my thing, because I still remember what Grandpa Geek says like during the Marvel stream that I first joined with you, Ambassador and George, is that he like, I do kind of like hate the writing, like how like Tom Holland as Peter Parker always used Stark technology, even though he is a genius on his own. He created wet fluids, and of course he is good at everything. And not to mention that he's in Midtown Science High School. I mean, he's a genius, and he's a nerd, of course, and he's a kind of a pop culture kind of guy, like the rest of us. I mean, of course, he still represents that nerd side of him, like what Peter Parker by Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield. And the thing that I do like about No Way Home is that it does have that theme of giving everyone the second chance, and that's kind of like the philosophical topic of that, or this philosophical theme of that movie. And I gotta say though, when it comes to Homecoming, I do like the portrayal of each actors. Like, even though I'm not really a fan of like Flash Thompson, because I kind of get used of the jock Flash Thompson from the comics, and Joe Manganiello and Chris Zilka. But when it comes to when it comes to Far From Home, it's kind of a step up from Homecoming, because again, he he can't always be like Tony. He has to be his own name. And finally, like No Way Home really address the whole theme, like of letting go of everything that he had been through, and finally be his own man. And that's why, like, finally by this movie, he's grown up. And I think, like, not only that, but not only that Tom Holland's Peter Parker has grown up, but Andrew and Toby, of course, has grown as well. And that's why, like, the fascinating part about No Way Home is that three of these Peter Parker, can be lovable, and we can, that we can all love him all at once. I mean, we don't always have to choose now. And I think, I don't know why. I think, like, the writers, like, understand, like, the audience, and I think they listen to what the audience has to say about Tom or about Andrew or Toby. But now, like, this film, like, kind of like ends that whole debate and just appreciate three of them.
Mhm.
And finally, finally by the end, like, not only Tom has grown up, and finally, like, he has, he carries it on his own. It's kind of like when I saw the it's kind of like when I see the Spider-Man PS4 cutscenes, and watching the whole thing, it's see how Peter Parker, being from selfish to finally caring to everyone, that he ever loved. And that's the beauty of it, of this movie. And he finally has to carry his journey on his own. And yeah, that's kind of like for me. And I want to hear your thoughts about this, Ambassador.
Well, going into this film, we knew where it was going to pick up at in terms of the chronological order. And that is, of course, right after the events of Far From Home. And, MCU Peter, he's dealing with a lot. And he's a young man who has just now gotten in a semi-stable relationship. And his whole world has been turned upside down because of one man's arrogance. And I will say this: the character of Mysterio, he was a complete and total con artist and a complete and total scumbag. And I have absolutely
Amen.
True to his character, though.
He is the one villain I have zero sympathy for.
But you can remember,
Absolutely
Tony
none.
Stark screwed him over too.
Well, you can either take the fact that
Yeah.
you were messed over and either do better and try and pull yourself up out of the gutter, or you can turn into the ass clown that is Mysterio. And yes, I will call him that. And no, Mysterio was not right. Mysterio is a jerkwad, and he deserved to die. He deserved to die the fiery, painful, bloody death that he got.
You're starting to sound more like me, Ambassador.
Well, no, because here's the thing.
All of them did, Ambassador. At the end of the day,
I don't think all of them. No, here's the thing.
think so.
I don't think all of them deserve to die. I think Mysterio did because he was a complete and total scumbag. The other guys were not complete and total scumbags.
But why do you say that about Mysterio? Because he told the truth?
Because he screwed over a kid because Tony Stark.
All he did was tell the
Guess
truth.
what? If your beef is with Tony Stark, then you deal with Tony Stark. You don't deal with
But Tony Stark was dead.
Well, then you let it go, and you don't con a young man who was trying to do right and was dealing with the death of a mentor.
Although
he's a scumbag, and he should deserve to be tortured by Mephisto in the deepest, darkest, fiery pits of hell.
You know
that is true, but although I gotta say that same thing of conning a kid can apply to Tony Stark, because I'm gonna tell you guys, when Civil War came out, I heard so many people saying, "Oh, Team Iron Man." I was Team Cap, just because I thought Tony was a hypocrite, saying like, "Oh, we need to be put in check and be held accountable." You basically blackmailed a 15-year-old kid into fighting in a conflict he had no stake in whatsoever, just so you could have an ace up your sleeve if necessary. That was a douche thing to do, and he didn't even. He didn't even say, "Oh, by the way, register with the with the Sokovia Accords and whatnot," even though you're not 18.
And and I do agree with that. But here's the thing too, with Civil War, and I don't want to get into a big debate on Civil War. We can do that another time if y'all want to.
Fair enough.
Both sides had their perspective, and neither side was inherently wrong. But yeah, would I say that Stark kind of did manipulate Peter? Yes, I did. But he also realized the error of what he did to Peter. That's the thing about Tony Stark. That's the thing about Tony Stark and about Peter Parker both. Their characters evolved and changed throughout the course of these films. And
Well, yeah,
go ahead, Zach. Well, okay, I'll finish mine, and then you go ahead.
Yeah.
I've heard this comment over and over again from detractors of the MCU that we didn't need 23 or however many movies it is now for these characters. Yes, you do, because in every movie they grow and they evolve and change. And the same is true of Peter. They grow and evolve and change. You can't just do 1 4-hour movie and call that character evolution and character development. Yes, I went there. Yes, I said it. Come at me. I don't care. I will nuke you.
I liked Ferris's point about Flash Thompson, who essentially is a guy that I think any one of us on the panel here could kick his ass. It goes to show like he's an embarrassing character. Like he's an embarrassing guy. I'd be embarrassed to even be in the same room as him. And yet it kind of represents the millennial version of bullying where
he does.
You can't fuck somebody up anymore. You can't throw fists anymore.
So you're trying
basically, right? I mean, he's a guy who's like a fat, creepy looking guy.
I guess we're not going to get Agent Venom anytime soon.
Yeah, well, he's a guy who it looks like you could push him over with, 3 fingers. There's nothing to him. He's not an imposing guy. He's just a prick.
I was like that from the first Spider-Man movie.
Get in trouble now.
I was like that from the first Homecoming Spider-Man movie.
It's funny.
I'm like, this is Flash Thompson? Oh my god, this guy's a wimp.
My grandfather.
Tom Holland's bigger than him.
My grandfather told me he was a really funny dude, and he said that back when he went to high school, if they had a problem with somebody, the teachers would take you outside so that you could fight, and they would facilitate the fight. Right? But anyway, it's kind of funny that this like pathetic guy is a bully nowadays.
Yeah,
I thought the Amazing Spider-Man Flash was like the best because he looked young enough and yet looked like a jock and so forth.
I thought he was the most comic book accurate because like Flash Thompson in the comics went from a bully to someone who was slowly accepting Peter, and you kind of saw that in the Amazing movies where at the end of the film him and Flash were starting to like not be friends but be pals in a sense.
Yeah, he did mature.
They were civil. They were amiable to one another. Yes.
Yeah, it's only because he found out he's Spider-Man. He was only be nice to him because he was Spider-Man. That's it.
Yeah, and also because Amazing does show like one aspect that so many people don't know is that Flash Thompson is actually Spider-Man's biggest fan in those early comics.
Yeah.
Well, when I saw he wrote a fucking book, I was thinking to myself, I hope this motherfucker gets killed, man.
Yo, they call it Flashpoint.
This
Is that
piece
like
of shit.
Oh man, can you say a little bit of Marvel trolling on the DC on the DCEU just a little bit, just a little. Okay,
I mean, it kind of did that Eternals with the Superman stuff.
That is true. That is true. I
This
will.
motherfucker writes a book. That really pissed me off.
I don't blame you.
I gotta say something though. Yeah, I gotta say something. But when it comes to the adaptation of Flash Thompson in Homecoming through No Way Home, like I looked at the actors like this guy's a good actor. I mean, I like that. I forgot what's that hotel movie that got nominated for an Oscar. Oh God, it was with Ray Fiennes. I think it was in it. I mean, he was a good actor, but I think he was.
Yeah, he's good.
Yeah, true. I liked him in that movie, but when it comes to him in this MCU Spider-Man trilogy, is like this is gonna be the guy that's gonna be Agent Venom someday in the future. Like,
I hope not.
I don't see that happening though, because like if you look at like Joe Manganiello or Chris Zilka, like I mean, they can be like an Agent Venom character. I mean, yet they both look imposing, and yet they're like jocks. And on the other side is that okay, they could really fit in the military. I mean, for a guy like Flash Thompson in the MCU, like I don't see that happening.
Flash Thompson was never a nerd or a geek. He was always a jock.
Yeah.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
That's true.
He only got into Empire State University through what was it, football or basketball scholarship?
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Yo, that guy Brad from Far From Home makes a better Flash Thompson.
Yeah.
I agree.
Ferris, is he the main character in Grand Budapest Hotel?
Yeah, I don't know if he's the main character. I think he was like one of the supporting characters.
Oh
I think it was the
my God.
yeah.
Might have been.
That's
I do
insane,
want to
dude.
give number one. I want to give you a chance to remark on anything that we've discussed so far. Give your thoughts on the film yourself. So, floor is yours.
Yeah, I like basically how the title of the movie "No Way Home" symbolizes basically the ending of this movie, because he's without his Stark Tech without a home basically, and basically starting back at to the original Spider-Man iconic suit we see him wear at the very end of the movie. So I like how it kind of circles back to kind of how he was introduced without all the fancy tech and stuff like that,
Fair enough.
Well, that's one thing we haven't touched upon yet is, of course, the sorcerer in the room, and that is, of course, Doctor Strange. And we had 3 million different theories about, is this the real Doctor Strange? We come to find out why is the Sanctum Sanctorum covered in snow? Because somebody left a portal open to the Himalayas. That's why there's snow in the Sanctum Sanctorum. It's not
They had shovelers there.
It's not a metaphor for the lowest level of Dante's Inferno. It's
Oh Jesus!
Doctor
That
Strange
shit
is
fucking
not.
drives me crazy, dude.
You're not the
Yeah, I
only
agree.
one. Believe me, Doctor Strange is not Mephisto. Doctor Strange is simply Doctor
Thank God for
Strange.
that.
Here's the
I
thing
am so
I
glad
noticed.
that I walked out of the movie last night. I was like, it wasn't freaking Mephisto. It was just Doctor Strange doing what Doctor Strange does and sometimes screwing up.
Well, don't get started with that abomination.
Yeah.
Which abomination?
The graphic novel that killed Spider-Man, like in.
He's
after
talking about
Civil
One
War.
More Day.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we talked about that earlier, I think, Ferris,
and-
if you didn't see it already.
Yeah, I was honestly glad that it was just Doctor Strange doing his thing, trying to help Peter out. And I liked the dialogue. I liked the humor between him and Peter. I will say this, I loved the fight. I loved the fight between Strange and between Peter. And it didn't bother me that Peter got a leg up on him. Because if you think about it, okay, who's playing a fighting game? And Ace, if it's you, I'm going to mute you if you don't mute yourself.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I don't care if you play a fighting game, but just turn off the sound while you're doing it. So
Yeah, I forgot. I thought I didn't hit my mic mute. I'm sorry.
it's Ace. It's okay. I'm not mad at you. I'm just giving you a little friendly ribbon. And speaking of someone that I like to give a little friendly ribbon to every once in a while, give a very warm welcome to another alum of the Ambassadorial Wing, Tim of Tim Talks, or as we know him, M Driver's secret love child.
What's up, everyone?
What's up, Tim?
Hey, Tim. Good to
Tim.
see you, bud.
Yep. My spidey sense told me to come here, so I was like,
No,
Let's
the
go.
fact I put the link in the chat.
Yeah, that's true
You were in
too.
the chat earlier, you goon.
that too.
So, Tim, your thoughts on No Way Home so far? Anything we've covered, or your thoughts in general?
I think you covered most of it, but I was just kind of blown away. Like, I was super hyped up before seeing it, and it was super nice being like around a big crowd. Actually, like, I think this is the first time I've actually had like a full crowd. And when I left the theater, like, there was like no parking at all, so that was just awesome. And then when you saw like Toby and Andrew on screen again, everyone was like, oh, and just that feeling, that crowd like feeling. But like I really like their banter back and forth. They feel like they've been acting together for like years, so their chemistry, even with Tom Holland, was phenomenal. Like even towards the end, and like the banter between them about how Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man doesn't need
yes, his webbing. Oh, I love that part.
Oh
that
yeah,
part.
kind of with the webbing. Yeah, that's
Yeah, they had a nice camaraderie.
Oh yeah,
they did. They really did. And I liked the chemistry amongst the three Spider-Man, but I also liked the chemistry amongst the villains. The villains, they had some some of them had really interesting dynamic of how they interacted with one another, and the fact that they were reacting to the fact that this particular universe has magic. And well, if you think about it, in their particular universes, it's a very isolated, it's very small. And for them, the whole concept of there being magic, and they're like, you have wizards and magic here? Okay, we don't have that in our universe. Why do you have it here? We don't.
Yeah, there was that line about like, what are the Avengers or whatever? He's like, what's that? This is
what are the Avengers?
Is that a band? Are you in a band?
Can I just say something about that scene?
Sure. Go ahead, Ferris. Go ahead.
About that scene where they talk like that Tom was in the Avengers. I always thought that in Toby's universe or the Raimi universe, connected to the rest of the Marvel movies in the early 2000s. Because if I'm not mistaken, like after the first Spider-Man movie, there was another Spider-Man animated series that was broadcast on MTV back in the day. It had Michael Clark Duncan as Kingpin from the 2003 Daredevil movie.
Was that the CG one?
Ferris.
Yes, the CG one.
There originally was plans for Tobey Maguire's universe to have like a mini version of MCU.
Really?
Ferris,
yes.
Thank you for.
Yes, there was plans for that to happen later on to have like some like other Marvel characters like Fantastic Four or whatever, even or Iron Man. They were planning. There was plans to have. I found out this a couple of days ago, but there was plans to have like more Marvel characters involved in the Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man universe. Unfortunately, Spider-Man 3 kind of ruined that idea.
Aaron.
Oh yeah,
I remember they said like Doc Ock's metal arms were supposed to be developed by Stark Industries originally.
Yeah, stuff like that. Yeah,
and Black.
And I heard that, and I also heard that Kevin Feige, who had an uncredited executive producer in the first Spider-Man, wanted Hugh Jackman to appear, but unfortunately they couldn't get the Wolverine suit out of Fox.
I think the original.
If he was uncredited, he wasn't.
The original plan might have been. Original plan might have been was try to convince Sony to have Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man to be part of that first MCU film, which is technically the first MCU film is the second Hulk movie. But if you really want to think about, most people think it's a Tony Stark movie, but I think that was the first. They wanted to connect that Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man to the first Tony Stark's first Spider-Man movie. They're trying to convince Sony there, but Spider-Man 3 ruined that idea.
Aaron, there's a deleted post-credit scene for Iron Man where Nick Fury brings up the X-Men and Spider-Man with references.
Yes.
Really?
They were playing the MCU. Yes, they were playing.
Yeah, I remember.
And Spider-Man 3 ruined it, and X-Men ruined it too. Because remember, the third movie was terrible. The X-Men third movie was bad.
Oh, don't get me started. Hey, that reminds me. I'll probably set this stream up for next week. Because Ferris, I made this promise to you, and I've been meaning to carry through on it. It's been crazy busy, and I've had so many other things going on. But next week we'll do that. We'll do that Marvel before the MCU stream, because I know you've been chomping at the bit for it. I know, and I do my best to try and keep my promises. So we will do that stream next week, because I think it'll be a nice little way to wrap up the year. Here for the channel. But getting back to Doctor Strange, I like the fact that Wong is now the Sorcerer Supreme, because you think about it, Strange got blipped, or he got snapped, and he's like, well, technically now Wong is the Sorcerer Supreme, and he's like, wait a minute, you were the Sorcerer Supreme. Yeah, but he's like, Wong was here and I wasn't. I can't help but laugh at that because here is Doctor Strange, one of the most powerful sorcerers in the MCU, and his assistant is now the Sorcerer Supreme instead.
Yeah.
And all right, we're good. Like I said, this is full spoilers, so we're going to talk about everything related to this movie tonight. Who all stuck around for the trailer at the end?
Of course.
I did.
Okay, everybody.
I did.
Zach, you didn't? Zach, you didn't, or you did?
Who? Me?
I think you said
No, I
did.
did not. I did.
Oh, you didn't see
maybe I'm the only one who didn't.
Oh,
Yeah, because they had the trailer for Multiverse of Madness
Yeah.
at the end of the credits. So
yeah, that's
did
fine
you-
with me. No, I didn't stick around.
and you call yourself a Marvel fan.
Hey, I had to take a piss, Ambassador.
I
What am I supposed to
did
do?
too, so don't.
Pee the theater.
Hey,
Wear a catheter.
Zach, I'm teasing you, man. I had to leave too, but I came back because I was like, I heard rumors that there was something, and I wasn't going to do a repeat of missing the other post-credit scene from. I
was telling people on Twitter.
Afterlife.
I was telling
It's like
people
a
on Twitter.
2.5 hour movie. I had to get
No,
down on
Zach,
that
I
at
get
that
it. I understand. I had to leave too and everything. I was like holding it and everything for the
Yeah.
mid-credit scene. I'm like, okay, wrap this up.
Yeah,
this up.
and
That's
I'll
the
tell you
key.
this too, dude. I never eat popcorn. The people I was with had popcorn. I had maybe 3 or 4 handfuls of popcorn. I felt like I was dying. As a guy who never eats popcorn, they loaded that shit with butter and shit. It caused like a
Well,
fucking
that's-
organ
What theater
failure.
did you go to?
What do you? It was a regular
AMC.
theater. Yeah, I think it was
Okay.
like Cinemark, I think.
You know what I would bring up? You guys are bringing up the duration, 2 hours and 30 minutes. Like, so for example, if the movie starts at 5, like there are 24 minutes of freaking or like stuff before the film actually started. So the film didn't start till 5:24. Isn't that
I know,
crazy?
right?
And then
I know,
the movie
right?
starts. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I hear you. That's your time to go take a leak. But yeah,
Well-
Zach, I get it.
Well,
Dude.
let me address that real quick because I was kind of pissed off about that. You pay a premium price to get out of your house and go and see a fucking movie. You pay what is it, $15 or whatever?
I only
And
paid 8, but I went to a matinee.
oh yeah, mine are expensive over here, but
I hear
you
you.
would think I'm paying for the premium of not having to see a goddamn 20 minutes of trailers.
How ridiculous! And,
Right?
and I just gotta say, one trailer I noticed: Tom Holland as Nathan Drake
Nathan
in
Drake.
Uncharted. I think
I know.
he's a little young. That's all I'm saying. And Marky Mark as
Hey,
Sully,
hey,
miscasting. Get Bruce
hey.
Campbell as Sully.
Ace!
Bruce
Sorry.
Campbell would be awesome.
Can you please turn the volume down on your mic? You're blasting everybody that's wearing headphones right now.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I turned
I'll
mine
bu-
My
down.
ears, dude.
Yeah.
So
Is that
I'm
better?
not yelling. Yes, that is much better. Thank you.
Okay, it got too close to my face. I'm sorry.
Well, let me throw this out there, guys. Willem Dafoe.
Phenomenal.
Awesome
Yeah.
beyond all reason.
Oh,
One of
without
the
a
best
doubt.
villains ever.
Why is he not the Joker? He had Joker vibes the whole time to me.
Oh,
Like,
well,
No,
I think I addressed this on your channel, Tim. Willem Dafoe actually auditioned for Joker in Tim Burton's Batman, but it ended up, it ended up to Jack Nicholson.
mm,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm gonna say it. Jack Nicholson was the right choice. Yes, I know, Zach. He plays a crazy person in every role. He plays Jack Nicholson in everything he does. We get it.
What?
He's so good at it.
I didn't mention Jack. I love Jack.
yeah.
Was he crazy in that one movie with Dennis Hopper and the other guy? That 60s
movie is-
movie?
Oh, Easy Rider.
Easy Rider, that's it.
I don't
No,
know.
he
I've
was
never
just
seen
stoned.
it.
He wasn't crazy. He was stoned.
No,
I've never
Over the
seen it,
Cuckoo's
so I
Nest?
wouldn't know.
Fly Over the
Yeah.
Cuckoo's Nest. That's the one. That's the one movie. I'm like, yep, this is the right choice for Joker.
What I thought was interesting, it felt like Green Goblin was like, overpowering, Tom Holland Spider-Man by a lot at first, right? When he gives him
Yeah.
that beat down. And then he's more angered and stuff. But I thought that was kind of cool. It gave him a little of an edge.
Yes.
He's a buffered version.
Well, it was all practical, which helps. The whole, all those, both fight scenes with Tom and Willem were practical fights.
And apparently, Willem did his stunts.
Right.
Yes.
He did. And I will say this, and just real quick before I give my point, I want to say hi to Darius McManus. It's good to see you, Darius. Thank you for popping by. Appreciate it.
Darius.
In terms of the ending of the final battle, honestly, I could understand. I could even relate to Peter's rage when he was beating the ever-loving crap out of Osborn, and I was like, oh yeah, I almost hoped that he would do it. I almost hoped that he would take that glider and just absolutely KO him, absolutely just take him apart, because in that moment I'm like, you take the one parent I have left. Well, and I'll finish this. I'm gonna finish this thought, but I want to go into another one. You take my parent, you take my family, you take the last piece of family I have left. You don't deserve to keep breathing.
I agree.
Yeah.
You don't deserve to keep freaking breathing. I don't care about your cure. You're a dead man. And I would have thrown off the other two peers, and I would have been like, you don't get to go home.
Well, if you look at the chart of characters, right, you have there's a certain chart that's like lawful good, neutral, lawful or good, neutral good.
D&D alignment.
It's like the role playing morality gauge. I know what you're talking about.
I would say the Green Goblin is chaotic evil. I mean, the character is really a wild card character.
I agree.
He's particularly dangerous. And there's an interesting Jekyll and Hyde concept, which is an ancient concept.
Oh yes.
And one.
Well, he has personal disorder. He does.
Well, it's a fundamental human story, the Jekyll and Hyde story.
It is. Pretty much
it was really interesting to see, and I didn't trust Norman from the second he stepped on screen. I knew he was fucked up. I knew he was somebody to be worried about.
He's got the other personality still floating around in his head. He was absolutely the most dangerous.
You know when it changed? When Doc Ock says, "How does it feel, Norman, to be fixed? That you're about to be fixed?" When you heard that, the switch went back right on.
Well, but the real question is, how long was the Green Goblin actually in Happy's apartment? I mean, that's the creepy part. What is he putting on a charade? We don't really know. I didn't trust him from the outset. Yeah,
that's true. That's the really dangerous thing about a character like the Green Goblin, like Norman Osborn, particularly this version of Norman Osborn. Because here's the thing: when they're all down there in the Undercroft of the Sanctum Sanctorum, and they're all talking about the fact, well, where they were yanked out is potentially where they died.
About to die, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, they were about to die is where they
were.
Well,
except for Sandman and Lizard, because they didn't die.
Yeah,
but
those
also,
two characters.
Yeah.
It's like, who am I going to trust? The guy who's supposed to kill me in my own universe, right? That's an interesting concept, too. Spider-Man has killed, many of these villains that are trapped within. It's like, who are you really going to trust? The guy who's supposed to kill you ultimately?
Who do we lose?
I gotta say something though about the whole scene where Tom's Peter fighting Goblin. So about that scene where like Toby's Peter like stopping Tom's Peter, it's like he literally like remembered that time like when Norman impaled by his own glider, and I still remember like when he said, "Don't tell Harry." And I think like that moment kind of like clicks on like Toby's Peter.
Yes.
To like to like not stop not letting Tom's Peter kill the Goblin or Norman. Yeah, that moment kind of kind of like hits on him is like because let's face it, like in the first movie, like his uncle is killed, and like the only he has a whole lot of people to like care about, from Aunt May, played by Rosemary Harris, and of course to Harry Osborn, who is his best friend, and then to Norman, who kind of acts like a father figure to him, but turns out to be an evil guy. And I believe like when Toby's Peter like heard about Tom Speeder's plan about stopping, like giving the villain like a second chance. Like he believes in that idea, and that is like the one thing that Toby's Peter did not do like in the first Spider-Man movie. And I think like he finally gets that a redemption on fixing fixing
I
Norman.
think Toby was thinking of Harry there because, look, this is the one thing. Look, these are different universes, but look at Doc Ock, Green Goblin. There's timelines within these universes where they're pulled out of. Like the MCU, there's different timelines. With these multiverses, there's timelines with those multiverses. That's why you got Doc Ock pulled from the timeline in the same universe as Green Goblin. We got pulled earlier because that timeline was earlier than the Doc Ock movie with Spider-Man 2. Same with Lizard and Electro. So maybe with Green Goblin, because Green Goblin, he got pulled at a time when Harry was still alive. So maybe Toby thought, if we could cure him, Harry would still have his father.
That's a possibility too.
Yeah.
Here's another thing I was thinking with the Toby thing. So remember in Spider-Man 3, he almost killed Sandman to avenge Uncle Ben, and then afterwards, his Aunt May told him revenge is like a poison. He's probably thinking like, if this version of Spider-Man kills Green Goblin, like it's gonna eat him up even worse than when he thought he killed Sandman, and that was when he had the black suit. And it's like this version of Spider-Man, if he gets the black suit and he pulls this off, it's like he's gonna go down a path that he may not be able to turn back from.
Yeah, that's potentially possible. And the really interesting, even Strange is like, you don't realize this, but in every, I'm trying to do what I think is best, but ultimately Peter is the one that's right. Now, it's not so much that Strange was entirely wrong, but he had a good point about what he was trying to do to send all these guys back. But here's the thing: you send them back, they're just going to go through the same cycle that they went through before. But with the MCU Peter, he's like, I have the opportunity, if I can try and make things right for these guys, I want to try and take it. And that's not just Aunt May's influence, but I think that's the influence of his entire journey throughout, since we met him back in Civil War, and the influence of everybody that has been a part of his life, from Stark to Aunt May to Happy Hogan, to all his interactions with at various points with the Avengers and so on, and with Doctor Strange as well. Because now that he knows that he can send them back, he's like, okay, if we can send them back, can we send them back better?
Yeah.
And
I think it.
Go ahead, Tim.
I think the interesting, while you were talking about those realizing things, like all these characters have this kind of like sense of control issue. You look at Stark, everything what happened with Ultron, and the fact that you can literally do anything. You had a purple guy looking for stones. This is post Blimp. The possibilities are endless. So they have all this technology, and I feel like Peter in this universe is heavily influenced on his peers, because they could actually change reality. They have element of time travel, but it's just a different. I guess my point is, it's just the climate on this universe allows the things that wouldn't necessarily happen in the original Tobey Maguire universe.
Yes, exactly. Well, and here's the other thing too, because we've now not only have they introduced the concept of time travel or the quantum verse, but now we've got the multiverse. And Strange says it perfectly. The multiverse is a concept about which we know frighteningly little. And he's right, because it is a big is a big, vast, scary concept. Even for somebody as powerful as Doctor Strange, you hear the desperation in his voice when the multiverse is cracking, and they're there on the Statue of Liberty. And can I just say a nice little callback to the finale for the first X-Men film? Just saying. So, Ace, I'm not sure if you're Ace. Can you hear the rest of us, or are you just having trouble hearing Tim and everything? I saw your message in the private chat. So let me know in the private chat if the rest of us are coming through okay.
Yeah,
but
you can hear me now.
I
can hear you, but I'm not sure if Ace can.
Okay.
Okay.
But I disagree with you though about that whole thing. about trying to say that these characters deserve to be redeemed. I don't think that they do. It's that whole thing about Darth Vader. I mean, he's essentially space Hitler. Does he really deserve that second chance? I don't think so, but it's what makes Luke a virtuous guy.
Well, it's also part of the journey and part of the story of the entire Blade trilogy, and the whole saga itself.
That's kind of like what it is to be a hero, right? You know,
exactly.
That's what I hear. Yeah.
You know, they're just saying. You know, Two-Face or said, you live long enough yourself to become the hero, to become the villain. You know what? A villain can become a hero.
I think he deserves what he got, though. I think he
and
was
that's
right,
your perspective,
and I think he went through that. I mean, he was a murderer.
And here's the thing: that's your perspective. You're entitled to it. We're all entitled to our perspectives here. Nobody's inherently wrong. I'm trying.
I would agree with that too. But
you know, well, the whole construct of the multiverse now, in particular, now that we've gotten the trailer for Multiverse of Madness and what exactly is going on with Doctor Strange's actions, and we've got all right, Ace. All right. We're going to see the ramifications of everything that Strange has done in these last several movies. And we're going to see what Strange is going to have to contend with. Now, for those of you that saw the trailer, did all of you pick up on the fact that we have the darker version of Doctor Strange from What If in this movie?
Yeah.
I don't think it's What If Doctor Strange.
It looks like.
I had a feeling it is because I think What If is going to play a big part. I'm sorry about this.
So. I think it's a Doctor.
I swear, if you say Mephisto, I'm going to nuke you.
Ambassador.
I swear, if you.
Ambassador, it's not that name. It's not going to be who I think you're assuming. It's not him. I'll tell you, it's not him. But you know somebody. I know you don't watch Max anymore, but George knows this. Yeah. You know this guy Degrassi knows, right? On who comments on
I know about.
He has information. He says it's not. It's What If Doctor Strange. There's going to be other variants of Doctor Strange out there too.
Well, but here's the thing: that is a variant of Doctor Strange.
He says it's not the What If Doctor Strange. It's not the What If version, because that What If version.
I think it is.
That What If version at the end of remember the end of What If, he kind of regretted everything he's done, and he helped everybody defeat the Super Ultron. So I don't see it being What If Doctor Strange. I think it's a different Doctor. Some playing tricks. Yeah, George, you saw that, right? Degrassi, right? No, I think you were there when you saw.
I'm not too sure if I was there for that stream.
But you know what I'm talking about, because you know Degrassi has.
Yeah, I know Degrassi. I don't know if I watched that stream.
Okay, that was a couple days ago. I think that was 2 days ago, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Well, I had a couple more things to say about Willem Dafoe.
Sure.
I think the character was scarier this time, guys. I mean, he was.
I have his mask on, so you saw
creepy as hell. Yeah,
I agree. I agree.
And when he's getting punched in the face and he's laughing and smiling, I mean, he was pretty fucking terrifying.
Yeah,
it's pretty impressive to me that Willem was able to come back and essentially double his efforts and make the character a better character. Despite the fact that what he did in the Raimi film was iconic. And he pretty much did a better job somehow, which is crazy to think of. For me, he was the highlight of the entire film, and essentially he was the main villain of the film, the main character driving the moral, struggle within Peter throughout the film. And I would say this too: is a good superhero film has to have a moral conundrum within it. That's what makes it great, and that's what makes, I think, a villain great. In every great superhero film where we have that moral conundrum, we have the villain driving the hero to break their principles, and we definitely had that within this movie. It's basically reminded me of it was a callback in a certain way to an earlier form of superhero film. I found it very refreshing.
You know what it reminded me of in a sense? It reminded me of The Dark Knight when
Yes,
the interrogation scene and like Batman's like beating him up and like Joker's like egging him on, wanting to break his rule. And like that's the vibes I got when like Peter's beating Green Goblin up and he's just laughing and smiling, taking it in. It's like he wants this hero to break his code.
And know what
Yeah.
the thing is? The Trojan horse for it was Aunt May, in a way, because like Aunt May was the one that convinced Peter to try to fix everyone, and give him that second chance. And then later on, literally gets backstabbed by the glider, launched by the glider, dies. Is that how she dies? By the glider hits her?
Yes,
And she just has adrenaline.
she gets impaled or whatever, or she takes a very severe injury from the glider ramming into her.
Yes.
What?
Yeah.
Are you guys talking about the PS4 game?
No, we're talking about the movie.
No.
I thought you
No,
got
no,
blown
it's
up by a
the
grenade, a pumpkin grenade.
There was a pumpkin grenade too. There was both of them was involved. She got impaled, and there was a pumpkin grenade. Yes.
Yeah,
She got impaled.
Yeah, she got hit by in the side by the glider.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then there was a pumpkin grenade after that.
I
Yeah.
thought she got.
But it didn't completely stab her like
No,
like
yeah.
Norman stabbed
No, no,
himself.
Yeah.
Because it didn't have the blades and everything extend from the side. But what happened, I think, is when it rammed into her side, it probably broke some rib
Okay.
rods
Yeah.
and
Yeah, I got
probably.
you.
But there was a
caused
pumpkin
internal
involved
bleeding.
after that. There was a pumpkin
Yeah,
involved
there was
That's
after
what
that.
killed her,
as
though,
well.
right? The pumpkin bomb killed her.
I would say it was a combination of both.
Okay.
Yes.
You got to think that thing
Right.
was how fast that thing was flying and how heavy that thing was. Like,
Yes.
and she's not a very big woman, and
And she's not exactly a young woman, even though, well, yeah, she is the most attractive of the Ant-Mans.
She's she's not one of them.
she's very nice.
Yeah,
she's
unfortunately, she's gone now. But yeah, I legitimately, this movie, I've got, the last couple of months and everything going to the movies, and just the last several months going to the movies, I've had honestly some emotional roller coasters, particularly with this movie and also with Ghostbusters Afterlife. And walking out of this movie, I actually felt I had been on an emotional journey myself, because I've been with this character from Civil War till now, this particular Peter Parker, but not to mention having the other two Peters come in. And this almost reminded me of the 50th anniversary episode or special for Doctor Who, when you had David Tennant and you had Matt Smith and you had John Hurt as the War Doctor. Honestly, this movie, it does have some callbacks. It does have a few slight similarities to Into the Spider-Verse. Obviously, it does, but it is its own animal. It is its own creature. But I think this is what good cinema can do. And to the detractors of the MCU, I say this: if you do not feel something, if you do not have an emotional connection to these characters, or if you have not developed a emotional connection, or if you're denying the fact that you have an emotional connection to these characters, then you're denying your own humanity, because all these characters are inherently human, and that's what makes them
I
great.
think that's a little harsh.
Well,
I'm
So-
no detractor. I'm no.
oh, I'm not saying you
but
are.
That's
So-
that's a pretty harsh sentiment. I would disagree with it.
Well, hey, that's your, and you're entitled to it.
I do have a problem with this, guys, and I could be wrong. I'm willing to admit if I'm wrong, and I'm willing to consider the fact that I could be wrong. Let me just preface my next statement with this. I think Tom Holland is a good Spider-Man, possibly the best Spider-Man that we've had. Yet I have reservations about a British actor playing an American icon from Queens. To me, it's like if we sent an American over there to play James Bond, I would have reservations about that as well.
But Andrew Garfield's British, and he played Spider-Man, and Christian
Well,
Bale,
there you
actually-
go.
he
I'll
played
give you the
Batman.
Same,
I know-
give you
Robert
the same
Pattinson.
sentiment.
It's
Yeah,
actually
why are
it's
these
actually
British
probably
actors taking our parts? Darn it!
You know what,
you know,
what if
like
I-
Henry Cavill.
Would I have noticed? I know there's different accents around America. There's different like kind of accents around America. When British actors, what I've noticed, British actors do a pretty good job of doing American accents than American actors trying to do British accents.
Yeah, but it all almost always sounds Southern.
Yes, that's true too. That's a problem. That's true.
But
I mean-
I'm not saying I have a problem. I'm saying I have reservations about it. Spider-Man
no,
is
I
without a
get that.
doubt an American
yeah.
icon, and it's kind of troubling that we can't get an American to play the part. Right.
Yeah.
And again, that being said, Tom is probably the best Spider-Man we've seen so far. Yet, I'm troubled by that fact.
He's right. Somebody did say Garfield is actually the first British one.
I look a lot of
Two out of
Yeah.
10. Wow.
at their backgrounds. A lot of these British actors have like years. They went to school for it, like do like
Yeah,
all
but
these
who
different
cares,
academies.
I mean, we've got how many people in this country? 300 million.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, look at Cavill's Superman. He's British, and I barely noticed that British accent when he's Superman.
Yeah, but
That's
how
true.
many American James Bonds have we had?
None.
Yeah, they're
That's
keeping
right.
they're keeping that close. That's because it's MI6. How many Americans are in MI6?
And again,
can have some-
I'm open-minded about it. I think Tom could be the
Okay.
best, but it's kind of troubling to me. Can we not find an American to do the part, guys?
Yeah.
Let's go for the best.
Well,
actor.
you know-
I'd be like,
Here's the thing. I don't care about. I've never really cared about a character. Now, I will say there are certain caveats with the statement that I'm about to make, and then I know Aces needs to go, so I want to give him a chance to give his final thoughts before he heads out. I am not interested in a actor or actress's political leanings, social leanings, their ethnicity, or anything else across the board. I am interested in their ability to give a good performance. Tom Holland has given a consistently steady performance in this role, and regardless of whether or not he is American or British is no difference to me whatsoever. And I think they hit upon a lot of very good emotional beats in this film, and I think that's one of the strengths of the superhero movie genre, the CBM genre, is it breathes fresh life, or it brings life to these characters that we would never see on the printed page, and allows you to go on a more in-depth journey than what you would get necessarily in just a comic book. So, but Ace, I want to give you the floor so you can give your final thoughts before you go. So the floor is yours, Ace. Ace, are you there?
he's muted. I think is he muted?
Yeah,
He is.
He's muted.
Or is
Ace,
he had like a mic problem?
Oh,
he might be. I'm not sure. He might be having a mic problem. Well, guys, Ace, are you there? Blink your eyes if you're there, Ace. Okay. While Ace figures out his IO issues, fellas, I yield the floor to one of you. Is there anything?
Well, let me just throw this out there. Does anybody agree with me or everybody thinks I'm wrong here on the panel about icons of a certain country. What do you guys think? Like an American Winston Churchill, would that work? You know what I'm saying? American James Bond, does that work? I'm not sure.
I I can see what you're saying. A part of acting is like, going into that role and learning, like, if you're going to learn that language, you want to be around those people so you get it right and the mannerisms and stuff like that. Because you are acting. Obviously, there's no blue people or like Gamora and stuff like that. So you come into the role. But I do understand what you're saying. I'm kind of like in between on that. So
am I.
I don't think you're wrong.
I think I am in between as well.
Yeah, because obviously I didn't like Tom at first. Kind of, I think it's part of this. It's because they kept switching Spider-Man and they didn't know what to do. They shorted, Andrew Garfield because they wanted to make the connective universe of the MCU. So it's like, gosh, everyone was talking about, like, how many times are we going to get Spider-Man? Why do they keep changing them up? So he had like he already had like this backlash coming towards him. It's like, give it a chance. So it's like, all right, yeah, he seems all right. I still have my preferences, but this film, I was like, wow, he really stepped up his acting game for me, and
Yeah.
even Zendaya was good in the role as well. I was
I
like,
agree.
yeah,
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
yeah.
I'll Ace, if you can hear me, I saw your comment in the private chat. I'll read it out for you. It's not like if they had a British or Russian guy playing Captain America. Yeah, because that would be
that's yeah.
So
Yeah, that'd be hilarious. That'd be hilarious.
I think it does add to it though when you cast someone that's like, the look, actually British or from that country. I think it does add to it.
Hey, Ambassador.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, Captain Carter, not Captain America, right? Because he's British.
Yeah, that's true. But also, it's the multiverse and it's what if.
Yeah.
So it's not main continuity per se. Yeah, and speaking of MJ and Ned, it absolutely, I will say this, it broke my heart at the end of the movie when he swings away after the fight and after Strange casts a spell, and even the fact that Strange says at the end very quietly to himself, "See you around, kid." And you realize that he's going to be affected by the spell.
Well, that elevated the film. The ending elevated the movie into almost like Dark Knight Returns type of territory. Just the snow at the end scene with him swinging as a lone ranger, essentially.
Yes,
kind of elevated what the film is. The fact that he took that sacrifice at the end, I think was awesome. I think was really good, and not that the film was predictable. I would say it was probably the opposite of predictable. But I saw two things coming during my viewing of the film. I saw the Green Goblin stabbing Toby as he was holding the glider. I saw that coming. My spider sense caught that. Just before the Goblin stabbed Toby, I said out loud, "Oh shit!"
Right, I thought he was going to die too.
Looking at him. I was going to be mad.
And I also saw Tom saying to MJ at the end, "Is there anything else?" No, I saw him saying that as well. But what a great last shot of him swinging alone through the snow.
Yeah, honestly, that I would say this is probably one of the. This was a truly great. I agree with you, Zach. It really elevated the movie to something really extraordinary.
Yeah.
And just a shout out to Josh, our good friend Josh of Order of Revan. It is good to see you, and we're doing good, Josh. Talking Spider-Man No Way Home. We're going to be later here in a little while. We'll be switching over, doing a little bit of a review on the episode of Hawkeye and everything. But
a Canadian could play Batman. We got an Australian that played Batman. Christian Bale was Australian and played Batman.
That's true.
I think he was British, if I'm not mistaken.
Christian Bale is Australian. I believe he's Australian.
I think you're
Irish or something.
I don't
check.
remember. He's
Or,
one of
or
these.
I think he, if I'm not mistaken, I think he had a British or UK citizen, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, the
Right.
only point I was making, and Ambassador, I think I've made this point on your show before, is
Oh, yeah, he was born in the UK.
is American actors don't get the same respect that British actors get. How many American actors have we had play Doctor Who? How many American actors were in Harry Potter? It just doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen in the same way that British actors come over to the U.S.
I can't think
No,
of any
you
American
can't,
actors.
because they don't exist.
Yeah,
Because
and
the
like
British film unions are very strict about that.
Yeah.
It kind of bugs me, to be honest with you. But again, I think Tom could be the best Spider-Man that we've ever seen. He's in the running. There's no doubt about it.
Well,
And I'll also go out on a limb, maybe not, and say that I think this is probably the best Spider-Man film of all time. But again, I have reservations about a British Spider-Man, a guy from Queens who is essentially again an American icon.
But here's the thing. Here's the thing, Zach. If he's impressed you thus far, and you're saying that this is probably the best one, doesn't that give credence?
It is the best.
But doesn't that give credence to the fact that a British actor can pull off this role, because he has pulled off this role?
But again, Ambassador, I mean, it's like if you look at the fight game, right? The UFC or whatever, professional fighting, there's always a tougher guy out there.
Yes.
So the only point I'm making is we just don't get the same kind of respect over here.
I would say yes and no, but
no, I would say yes. I mean, again, name me one American actor in Harry Potter or Doctor Who or James Bond.
But here's the thing. Here's the thing, Zach.
There's been American actors in James Bond. Halle Berry.
Here's the thing. But
not playing James Bond. But I know your point. There's been.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing too, Zach. And you may not be missing this. It may not just cross your mind. Each of those properties is inherently something British. They are a British property, ergo they do have the final say in who they want to portray those characters. Doctor Who has always been a British character. It's been a British property.
J.K. Rowling wanted an entirely British cast for Harry Potter,
and that was her prerogative as the creator of that particular IP of that property. That is her prerogative to do so, and the studio consented to it. The same thing is true with James Bond.
I'm not pissed off, dude. I'm not.
I know you're not. I know. I'm not saying you are mad. I'm not.
And I didn't say I had a problem with it either. I said I had reservations about it. I get the distinction with what you're saying, Zach. I'm not disputing that. I'm just saying this is a situation around each character. So, unfortunately, Ace is having some issues with his audio, so he's like.
I read what he said.
Okay, so I'm gonna read this for everybody so that Ace can go ahead and bounce. I'm just gonna say, okay, some continuity issues I saw with No Way Home would be Ock saying that Norman Osborn was Green Goblin, and Sandman saying it was all of the news when the only people who actually knew was Peter, Harry, and MJ, and Harry's butler was weird. And also Garfield Spidey saying Electro was a good guy before he got his powers is strange because he literally bumped into him on the street less than 2 minutes of interaction. So I get what you're saying, Ace. I've honestly never, and here's the thing. There may have been dialogue.
The Sandman thing. He thought when Sandman thought Peter, he thought it was his Peter. And from his universe, Tobey Maguire. I remember that.
Okay. But Ace, thank you for being here tonight. Yeah. I really do appreciate it, and I hope you enjoyed yourself. Sorry you had your issues with your audio and everything. And look forward to having you on again. So. Yeah, Zach, you can say that out loud. It's not something you have to put in the private chat, but yeah, nobody but hardcore people remember Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2.
It's true, guys. And Spider-Man 3 is a piece of shit, and I'm glad you guys are willing to admit it.
Oh,
It was
yeah.
it was a studio interference film. That's the thing.
Well, but
Yeah, with-
is it that, or is it Sam's revenge against the studio? I mean,
No, I wouldn't go
I
that
just
far.
I just gotta say one thing about Spider-Man 3 though, because like originally there were like a lot of discussion about what they're gonna do with that movie, but
Vulture.
again, Vulture was supposed to be in it. It was supposed to be played by Ben Kingsley, but then after that, like the studio did
Ooh.
not want that.
oh shit!
Avi
What a
Arad
great
wanted.
choice, huh?
Yeah, a
Yo, they
really
gave
good
a
choice.
special
I'll
credit
admit
to
that.
Avi Arad. Did you guys see that? They gave like a special credit to Avi Arad.
What, by the
Yeah.
credits? I think.
Yeah, during the credits they gave
Oh
like a
yeah,
special
yeah,
shout out.
yeah. I remember that.
I remember
The guy
like,
is kind of a
earlier-
bum now.
Okay, I've been saying on this question for the last 2 hours. Did anybody notice the Easter egg of graffiti on the roof of Midtown High when Peter and MJ are up there?
Yes.
Did
Yeah.
anybody else?
I didn't see it.
No.
Yeah, I kind of like missed that
Somebody-
part.
It's a little piece of graffiti on the roof and everything. It says Ditko,
Steve
Oh.
Ditko, yes.
as in Steve Ditko, who was one of the co-creators of Spider-Man.
And
Oh.
Doctor Strange.
Like
That's
Huh?
true too. That's true. Doctor Strange.
did
That's a
Doctor
great-
Strange create? Did Doctor Strange create or did Ditko create Doctor Strange too?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I guess I didn't know.
I
that.
did have this realization though that Strange is essentially, pretty prominent in the film, and I kind of had a parallel between him and Stark, the roles that they had.
I would say yes, to a degree. Yes, absolutely. I think also Strange's involvement. I'm glad again that all of the theories about his behavior being a clue to being something bigger than it actually was completely unfounded. Honestly, I'm glad that it was just Strange acting a little mercurial, a little grumpy, and just being a little offbeat, which is what his character was. I mean, here's the thing: we haven't seen Doctor Strange just kind of by himself since the first movie. It was either him in Infinity War or in Endgame. Granted, he only has a few scenes in Endgame, and he has a more prominent role in Infinity War, obviously. But in this movie, we finally get a little more just solo time with Doctor Strange, and obviously he had a cameo scene in Ragnarok too. I forgot about that. But
Yes, he did. He did. Yeah.
he would remember because Thor goes to look for him. But honestly, we sometimes forget about how his character is portrayed and how Cumberbatch portrays him. And he can be a bit arrogant. He can be very hot tempered, and he can be a little bit on the harsh side, but that is part of his personality. He can be very relatable and very genuine and warm and everything, but at the same time, he is the Sorcerer Supreme. Yes,
He has
I
to keep
recognize
things in
that.
order. He has to keep things in order. So he has to be
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
I like how pissed off he was when he's like, "Yeah, you got it on a technicality."
You got Scooby Doo this shit.
Yes.
It's funny to see him disturbed, right? He's doing his own thing, and this guy shows up, and he's like, "All right, yeah. Well, listen, man, I'll help you."
Yeah.
They did copy the line though. Here's the problem with the script: is the "I'll allow it" line was already written for Tony Stark.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
That
I think it
bugged
was
me.
nice. Yeah, it's okay. Bugged you.
Can I say something about that not the Scooby Doo this shit? Because it's a bit ironic because the first Spider-Man movie came out 2002. The first Scooby Doo came out also in 2002. Both of the second movie came out in 2004. The sequel, I mean, like how ironic is that they bring out that nod in that in No Way Home. I mean, I used to love like both.
They're pure early
Was that-
2000s. Like
Yeah.
I know,
early
right?
2000s movies.
Yeah, I get I get nostalgic when I go back and watch the Scooby Doo movies. I mean, I know like some people hated it, but I don't
Oh,
care.
I
I mean,
love
it
I
was
like
my
the first one. I like the first
You
one.
talking
No,
about the
no.
live action ones with the CGI Scooby? Is that the one you're talking about,
Yeah.
Ferris?
Yes, and both were written by James Gunn.
Yes, they
Yes.
were, and I love
Uh,
that fact.
My only problem with the live action Scooby-Doo, as much as I enjoyed, is like it became a Scrappy Doo bash fest at the end.
I'm okay with that because I hate Scrappy Doo.
Yeah, I think like that was one of the characters that nobody loves.
I vehemently and totally hate the character of Scrappy Doo. Scrappy Doo can rot in hell along with Mysterio.
Here's the only positive thing about Scrappy. He helped save the Scooby-Doo franchise when it went down the spiral in the 70s.
No, he didn't. He killed it.
But again, he kept it alive enough where like it became popular on Cartoon Network and it got back on its feet again with Zombie Island and those other movies.
I hate Scrappy Doo. I do. I've never
Zombie
hated
Island was actually a good film, George.
Yeah, no, I love Zombie Island. That was my childhood right there.
Yeah, that was not a bad film.
But but honestly, I won't lie, I'm really looking forward to Multiverse of Madness. I am glad that they are tying in that that Wanda does. She is confirmed that she is in the movie. Although we've heard about it for the last several years, but we know for sure that she is going to be in Multiverse of Madness.
By the way, George, do you know who voices the main zombie pirate in that film?
Not quite. Who?
It is Mr. Mark Hamill.
Shut up.
Oh, really?
It is.
I thought he
surprise me.
voiced the fisherman in that movie. I thought he did the fisherman's voice.
No, he's the zombie captain.
Oh wow.
Who is the zombie captain? I just came back. Who? What?
Mark Hamill.
Mark Hamill.
Oh.
It's Scooby Doo
It's
Zombie Island.
Oh yeah.
Yo, I will say
okay.
about,
Go ahead, George.
I'll say this about No Way Home. Like as far as the returning actors from previous franchises, after Defoe, I think the second best one and the one who clearly loved being there and took full advantage was Andrew Garfield. He like really put his heart out into movie. And like this was like his redemption. This was like his star performance. And I just loved that he enjoyed being there. And I think when he says "I love you guys," it was very genuine.
Well,
it's him talking to himself, right? If I had three of me, I would be very happy about it. I mean, imagine that, having three of yourself, all the shit you could get done. And at the end where Peter is trying to say his piece to the other two, they already know what he wants to say. It's him, right? He's talking to himself.
Just different versions. But yeah,
if you look at how
I wanted to bring up Doc Ock. I found myself rooting for the character. I mean, I was really glad to see him come back and make the right choice at the end. And yet, here's a little bit of a issue I had. I liked the portrayal. I liked the character. Again, I was rooting for him throughout the film. But I think the evil Doc Ock was a little bit off. Not super off, just a tad off. For me, evil Doc Ock was not 100%. He was a little bit too comedic for me. Anybody have thoughts on that?
Yeah, he was definitely very grumpy. I think what happened, like once he found out that was not his Peter Parker, he just like was like, "What the heck is going on?" And it's like the last thing he needs to do is deal with a wizard and like a younger Peter Parker and like people that are clearly not the MJ that he remembered kidnapping, or some guy that's clearly not Harry Osborn but some other friend.
It's called being marvelized, right?
I'm just very confused.
Well, and here's the other thing too. All of the villains, when they're down there in the little prison or dungeon or whatever, their interactions, some of them very much jive with one another, but other times they don't necessarily. They are very antagonistic towards one another as well. And if you look at the interaction between Doc Ock and Osborn, they're a little more receptive to one another because they're from the same universe. I think what you had here, honestly, and I don't think they necessarily address it per se, but the fact that all of these characters are from different universes, and they've been kind of shoehorned into this universe. It's almost like for those of you that saw Into the Spider-Verse, the animated film, I think it's a similar dynamic there where they couldn't do the exact same thing with the different Spider-Men that they couldn't do the same thing with the villains that they did with the Spider-Man and Into the Spider-Verse because it's animation. They could show them glitching and everything. But I think how they were reacting to different stimuli and everything was them reacting to the fact that they are outside of their own universe and they know that they shouldn't be there. I think that was kind of a visualization through dialogue of the fact that they're out of joint.
Well, do you disagree though? I would say that Willem Dafoe I would give 100%. I thought he was phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
I would give all three Spider-Mans 100%. I would give Jamie Foxx 100%. But for me, Alfred Molina, as much as I loved the character, and I did, I would give him maybe an 85%. There was something a little off. 85% out of 100. It's still a great rating, right? But there was something a little bit off with evil Doc Ock. Like when you see scenes like, is this Peter Parker, also known as Spider-Man? Yes. Is this him? No. It's like, you know what I mean?
Yes, I get what you're saying.
Great question.
Was it a little off to you guys, or was it perfect for you guys? The Doc Ock performance.
I think honestly it was just a little bit over the top, but for me it didn't necessarily bother me because I put it into the category of the reason he's acting more aggressively is it's more of an in-world explanation more so than performance. I think they were having Molina act that way as Otto Octavius was to portray the fact that these characters understood that they were in a different universe and they didn't. It was messing with maybe their psychology and maybe the fact that Octavius's mental status was already out of whack as it was, and him being outside of his own universe exacerbated that further.
But in terms of the portrayal out of 100%, what would you say? 100 for you, or
no? I wouldn't say 100 and everything because with any performance, here's the thing: the performances are going to be subjective across the board for all of us.
Well, yeah, no doubt about it.
To be perfectly candidly fair, I would give him a 90%. Okay. I think his performance was very much in keeping with the Doc Ock that we saw in Spider-Man 2.
Yeah, I agree.
And it was for the film and everything. His particular story arc, his particular journey, was very captivating, and that's true of all the villains, including Osborn. Even though I hated his ever-loving guts for killing Aunt May. When you can make me hate a fictional character to the point where I actually want to, at least in the film, let me codify this. When I want to see this character die in the film, and I don't care if he gets his redemption because of the pain he causes another character, you've hit me on an emotional level, and that for me is a good thing. So, guys, your thoughts on Zach's
I wanted to ask everybody in terms of 100%. I just want to get like a poll out of everybody because it will help my understanding of the film. I pose the same question to everybody on the panel. Out of 100%, what do you give Ock for you guys?
I can't really grade, but I will say, like, I'll be honest, he did seem a little over the top, and I'm like the biggest Alfred Molina Doc Ock fan that there is. Like, I love Spider-Man 2, and love his performance.
So do I.
But at the same time, I can't really blame him for being frustrated because, again, he's in a new universe. This is not like his Peter Parker. It's like, what, now wizards are all of a sudden appearing, and it's like, just think how he would react if, let's say, like the Hulk just came out of nowhere to help Peter Parker.
Just give me a percent.
He's a scientist. I'll give 90. I'll give him
90. I gave 85.
I'll do 90 as well.
Okay. Yeah. Tim Ferriss.
85, I think.
Maybe.
Okay, 85, 90. Okay.
I would say 90. I think who was more misplaced was Lizard Man. Like, I realized that. I mean, it's hard because his whole character is CGI essentially, and then we don't see him, the actual character, till the end. So that that's going to be hard.
Reused footage they used. I think they used
reused footage. Him and Sandman.
For him and Sandman because they couldn't get all the actors on set. Most of what you saw was CGI and voiceover.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting the fact that they made Sandman just Sandman the whole time, when in the other film he'd go back and forth from being Sandman
because they couldn't get the actor.
I know, but that kind of affected.
Were they not able to get Thomas Hayden Church back?
No, they got him back to voice, but they couldn't get him, I think, on set as well as Rice.
What the fuck else is this guy up to?
Because here's the thing, because this was happening, I think, during COVID, and they wanted to keep these actors as secret as well.
Oh,
so think about it. When Sandman turns back to normal, that's footage of when Sandman was like getting wet in the subway fight against Spider-Man when he's going back to normal.
That guy's like, no, I'm under contract to do a Egyptian soap opera. I mean, what else is this guy doing?
And when Rice Ephens is like turning back to normal, that's footage from Amazing Spider-Man.
It's probably because of COVID.
Yeah, I would hope so. It's like, I mean, I haven't seen that guy since Spider-Man 3. I mean, really.
The reason why it's hard to tell is because they did a good job of making it look like it was recently filmed, not filmed in 2012 or 2007.
At the end, it looked exactly like him.
It did.
Well, let's be candid here. We're dealing with Sony. They have very good CGI tech. Just saying.
When he signed his contract for number 3, dude, I bet you he gave away his appearance. Is that what happened, guys, or no?
I don't know.
Don't know, honestly.
But he was awesome. The Sandman character was pretty fucking cool in the movie, I thought.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, of all the villains, we've talked about Doc Ock, we've talked about Green Goblin. The other really standout performance, Grant, I didn't see him in Amazing Spider-Man 2. Jamie Foxx as Electro. I think his character, from what I've heard from everybody else, his character really got a big redemption in this film. Yes. And I'm glad to see it, honestly, because I like Jamie Foxx as an actor. I loved him except for maybe Zach. I don't think any of you are going to be old enough to remember this show. I remember when Jamie Foxx started off on the sketch show from the 90s in Living Color. And he was absolutely
hysterical. I know about that show. I know about it.
Okay. All right, Aaron.
My favorite Jamie Foxx part, Django, right? I fucking love Django.
Oh, Django Unchained?
Yeah. This is a great movie. Yeah.
I've never watched, as much as a fan of Tarantino. As much as a Tarantino fan as I am, I have still not had a chance to watch Django.
That's Tarantino's
Oh, you gotta see it.
Yeah. Django is fucking phenomenal, but Ambassador, dude, dog, I would agree, man. Jamie Foxx's character was really an underwhelming character in Amazing Spider-Man 2. He had this creepy CGI look to him that
I've seen that, yeah.
That just was kind of unpleasant. But in this movie, my thought was about the Electro characters. The character throughout the film, and I think this is really unique and impressive in terms of the performance, the script, and the portrayal, everything you want to say, is the character felt like a regular dude. He felt like a real guy, which was crazy. He felt like a regular guy. He felt like a real person. I think that's pretty damn impressive.
Yeah. I do want to address Daniel's comment here and everything. What are your guys' takes on Peter Parker being wiped from everybody's memory?
I'll just say this.
Go ahead.
He has to create his whole identity now, because legally he doesn't have any parents or legal guardians. He doesn't have birth certificate, ID of any sort, anything. He has to legally create something for himself. He has to create a persona for Peter Parker. People know who Spider-Man is. But because everybody doesn't know Peter Parker basically does not exist.
Exactly. Yeah. Now,
I
Spider-Man
hope
still
they go
exists,
that
but Peter
trend.
Parker doesn't.
Yeah.
Yo, it's kind of interesting. We've had Spider-Man no more. Now we got Peter Parker no more.
That's true.
Like literally,
Yeah,
like
okay.
we are going
All
into a
right.
new trilogy where we're going into a Peter Parker no more arc.
He's
instead of
he's
Spider-Man
basically a
no more.
ghost. He's basically a living ghost. 'Cause
Essentially.
nobody.
Yeah. Okay. One thing we haven't really touched upon, I do want to, is okay. J. Jonah Jameson, J.K. Simon's back as I think one of his most iconic characters ever. Your guys' thoughts on that character?
All right. Well, let me throw this out there. He's basically the Alex Jones version of J.
I-
Jonah Jameson.
Yes, because he was, especially when he did that stupid plug for the Daily Bugle supplement. I'm like, okay, I know this is a bit on the nose, but can we just say Alex Jones?
Yeah, well, it's too bad that they couldn't cuss in this movie. There were many times where people should have cussed and they didn't cuss. The scene where Jameson is outside the apartment and he's like, and the guy's like, Jameson is like, where are they? And he's like, they're inside. And he's like, it sounded like there was a fuck in there that should have been said. What the fuck are we doing out here then? Right?
Yeah. Okay.
No, he was good. He had a good part. He actually had kind of a big part. You know, he had a little cameo in the second one. Good seeing him again, man. I love J.K. Simmons.
He helped ruin Peter Parker's life as well in this movie. Like first it was Mysterio, then it was Jameson. Like,
all right, I'm just gonna say this. Now, the J. Jonah Jameson in the Raimi trilogy, I liked him.
Yeah,
I liked that particular iteration. This J. Jonah Jameson, I want a thunder punch in the throat.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
Is such a complete and total douchebag.
Because Jonah Jameson, despite his hatred for Spider-Man, he does have a heart. This one doesn't.
Yo, remember in Spider-Man 2, he said Spider-Man was a hero. And remember, in the first Spider-Man, he was risking his life to protect Peter Parker from the Green Goblin. He wouldn't give him up to the Green Goblin.
Saved his ass.
And also, remember, in Spider-Man 3, like, he even fired Eddie Brock for slandering Spider-Man.
Because of the lies, because of Eddie Brock's lies about the
and even apologized to Spider-Man. So Jameson had morals in the Raimi
integrity, morals, integrity.
Well, I think it was brilliant because this is why. Because it sets up the next film. Because he's going to end up working for the man, so it's going to make it even greater. That's exactly what they're going to do. Like the parallels at the end, the way it ended was parallels to Tobey's Spider-Man with the guy collecting the rent. You know, there's going to be some, homely looking chick that he. What?
That apartment was a piece of shit apartment, huh?
Yeah, like Tobey's
Spider-Man. Think about it.
He's very grounded in reality. He doesn't have anyone, and he's gonna get back to the roots of what Spider-Man is supposed to be.
That's like a Brooks Was Here apartment.
Yes, I get that reference, Zach.
Yeah.
Shawshank Redemption.
Fuck that! Also, I ain't living in a fucking place like that. Man.
Also, he's obligated though, and I think some questions posed is the fact that where did he get the money? So I think maybe he sold some, I don't know, maybe he inherited some money from Aunt May, but then there's the question, well, he's not, Peter Parker is essentially not like coexisting with anyone. No one knows he's alive, but he still has tech. The Tony Stark tech that he can sell.
Would that erase like legal documents and shit? That's an interesting question too.
Yeah, man. Yeah, he has to create like he has to create like everything, a whole new persona for Peter Parker.
But
does he though? I was on IMDb looking up like the goofy like outtakes of the film. If you look at that, after Peter's been found out, or near the end, I guess is what I meant to say. Near the end of the film, you still see those Peter Spider-Man shit graffiti on the walls and shit. So does Doctor Strange's spell erase that as well? That's an interesting question too. I don't know.
How do you erase the?
It was in the goofs. It was in the goofs on IMDb, so it's an open-ended question, I guess.
Yeah,
maybe
plot hole. Some sort of clue to like, and there has to be some sort of clue where someone's going to suspect something. Like, wait a second, where did this web slinger go?
Well, do you guys think that MJ had a sense of who she was talking to or not?
No,
No.
Now?
I don't think so. No, I don't think so
Yeah.
at all.
Do you think?
Oh,
I don't know, because we can't speculate on the next trilogy, because there's gonna be a next trilogy.
Yeah, like because to me, like, because Peter Parker's a nobody. Like, what, like, is he gonna like? Are we gonna get like a new cast of characters in like Miles, Gwen Stacy, and Harry, or like is he gonna like attempt to reunite with these characters like one more time? Like, how is he gonna be introduced? Like, will Miles and Gwen Stacy get bit by a spider and he meets them through that, mentoring them? Like, there's so many different directions they can go with this, and the only indication we have of what can happen is that small Venom symbiote in the mid-credit scene. That's the only clear indication, and that's not a guarantee for the next movie. That could possibly be the 5th or 6th movie down the road.
And possibly, if they start remembering who he is, can that possibly negate the spell and the multiverse once again collapses?
Well, but here's the thing, too, though. That spell isn't tied specifically to the multiverse. Specifically, it's its own separate spell. If you remember WandaVision, spells are going to be multi-layered. When Agatha's talking to Wanda about all the different spells that she's got running to do to keep the enchantment going on Westview, the same principle is true of any magic that Strange works as well. And when he tries to do the initial spell and Peter keeps screwing it keeps adding in all these caveats and everything, but and then he can't erase the spell, but he can momentarily or temporarily encase it in a protective field or whatever it is, and everything in that cube that he has.
So technically, he could go to Doctor Strange and say, make this certain people remember me again. It won't affect the multiverse.
But here's the thing: Strange isn't going to remember him because even Strange
will
forget who he is.
That's true too. That's true.
Honestly,
who are you, kid?
I honestly do not want them to undo the spell, because if you do it, you're going to.
I agree.
You're going to undo so much world building and so much character development. I'm glad that he's going off and he's going to be on his own and he's going to start a new life, and it's going to be just him as the Spider-Man. You might occasionally get a crossover, because here's the thing with the Spider-Man character. He's had crossovers with different characters in the MCU since his inception, honestly. So there's potential down the road that he could still interact with different characters, new characters from the MCU. He could potentially be a new member of the Avengers, possibly. We don't know that for 100% for certain. But the potential is there. So honestly, the slate is clean, and they can pretty much tell whatever type of story they want to now. Because here's the crazy thing about
a Manhunter story.
Say that again, Zach.
Who is the guy, the tiger guy?
Oh, Craven.
Craven the Hunter.
Well, yeah, that's in the works.
Taylor Johnson is
casting. Yeah, Aaron Taylor Johnson. Yeah.
Oh yeah, they're gonna have his own movie.
Yeah.
Craven the Hunter
played
a movie.
Pietro.
Obviously, Morbius is going to have his own movie, but that's going to be tied more into Blade than is Spider-Man. Although there is some crossover there. Again, when you think about Spider-Man, there are so many characters in the Marvel universe, not specifically the MCU, but in the Marvel universe, that he has crossed paths with and done crossovers and team ups with and everything else across the board. Hell, there was a time when Spider-Man was even a member of the Fantastic Four. For those of you that might remember that.
Yes, he was. I remember that.
The goofiest shit I've ever seen is Spider-Man meets Scooby-Doo.
I don't think I've ever seen that, but I could believe it.
You know,
was that really a
Batman's mess Scooby-Doo?
Yeah, it's a film, and it's one of those films that if you take a look at it, you're just going to sit there for an hour and a half and laugh your ass off.
Okay, I'll have to do some research on that one.
I mean, it's so fucking funny.
Yeah.
Can I ask this question to everybody though?
Sure, Ferris, go ahead.
Since we're going to go to a next trilogy, it's confirmed that Kevin Feige said that Spider-Man 4 is in active development. Where do you guys think that the trilogy would gonna go? Because personally, for me, it's gonna be like it's gonna be like the college trilogy, because in the comics, like, he met Harry Osborn through college, and I think he also met Norman Osborn during his college years. I personally wanted to see, like, by the end of the next trilogy, that he finally gets a happy ending. Like, he probably
How old is Tom though, Ferris?
he's
25.
25.
I think I saw something on Twitter that said he would not play Spider-Man after the age of 30.
He
Did
did
you
say
guys
he
see
wanted
that
to.
same thing?
He did say he wanted to slow down, start a family, take a break from acting, and start a family.
Didn't
did say that.
Osborn
been
doesn't
making enough
exist
movie.
in this universe.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So, Ferris, your question was what happens after this, right?
Yeah, like, what do you guys think, like, where the next trilogy is gonna go? Because we all know that he's gonna go to college, and he's probably gonna meet up with Harry Osborn if he exists, or maybe he's probably gonna have a new girlfriend, like, I don't know, Gwen Stacy, Black Cat, etc.,
Black
etc., or
Hardy.
maybe Mary Jane.
Him meeting Harry would be a good idea, I think.
Yeah,
I will
actually.
say this: if the film was not as strange as it is, just by the nature of the film, it's a bizarre movie. It's not a cookie cutter film at all. Frankly, I'm surprised that the higher ups signed off on the film. If it wasn't as crazy and experimental and risky as it was, I wouldn't have seen it by now. The fact that it reached a guy like me is impressive. It struck the right balance. It can hit family audiences. It can hit a guy like me who's into shit that in my mind shit that matters, like dramatic storytelling and stuff like that. For me, Ferris, it depends. If it's another cookie cutter film, I'm not going to really give a shit about it. But if it continues to experiment and continues to take risks, I'll have my eye out for it, and I'll probably see it opening night. It depends on which direction they go in.
Because I do want to see him, like, getting a happy ending, like, by the end of the next trilogy, like him having a happy life with Mary Jane, and maybe, like, Miles Morales could be
Well,
like
here's
the
the
next
thing.
Spider-Man.
I
Well,
can see
Ferris, just
him
real quick.
entering Miles by the end of this
He's already
trilogy.
met Mary Jane, so the next love interest will either be Felicia Hardy or will be Gwen Stacy.
Yeah,
Or
that's
Mary
a problem.
Jane's
Because
Yeah.
he's already had his MJ. He's already had
I
his
Yeah.
MJ.
want to see something unique, Ferris. I want to see something unique that's not cookie cutter, that takes risks. I think that's what's so
I get
impressive
that.
about this movie.
I want to see Black Cat. That dynamic.
Yeah, have a
That's a
female
possibility.
fatality in the love
we
interest.
need to have a live action Black Cat, I think.
For
They were
anyone that's
supposed to.
played the
They were
game,
supposed to. They teased an Amazing Spider-Man 2 with Felicity Jones's character who worked with Oscorp. Remember that character?
Well, that was when the Amazing Spider-Man movies were supposed to be the beginning of the Sonyverse, not
Yes.
Venom.
Yeah.
Anne Hathaway I think was cast as Black Cat, but they didn't do it in the
Yeah, for
original
Spider-Man
Toby
4.
version. Yeah.
Oh, that's
Well,
a
here's
bad choice, man.
Oh, she played Catwoman.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
she
can't
didn't play
do that.
She was a really good Catwoman in The Dark Knight Rises, in my opinion.
I liked her.
Yeah, it's just
Yeah, but you
overall
can't
not a
have
very
her
good movie.
as two fucking black cats.
Yeah,
No.
that's true. I agree.
Yeah.
I wholeheartedly agree.
Yeah.
Well, the truth is, like I said, it's a completely clean slate. They can pretty much go in any direction that they want to.
Oh, Mr.
And-
Negative.
Well, you had Mr. Now, I'm not saying they can't do it just because he made an appearance in the video game, but they did introduce Feast in this movie. So they've already kind of opened the door for the character of Mr. Negative. It's just a question, are they going to walk through it? But honestly, and, I want to make a remark about what you just said, Zach, because a lot of people had said that the MCU has become rather formulaic. I would say thus far, with the films we've gotten for Phase 4, have been anything but formulaic, except for
Are you
maybe
kidding
a
me?
little.
Are you joking?
Well, if you'll let
Black
me,
Widow? Come on,
I
man.
still,
Black Widow.
I still haven't had. I regard Black Widow as a Phase 3 film, not Phase
Oh.
4.
Oh my God, Black Widow. What
No,
was
I
the
still
other
haven't.
one?
I still haven't had a chance to see it.
Oh my God, Shang-Chi.
What?
I actually enjoyed Shang-Chi.
I
She was
hated it.
great.
Ambassador, you
That's
didn't
all right.
see
I'm
Black
sorry to cut you
Widow?
off, dude.
Sorry.
That's okay. Go ahead, Tim.
Oh, I just said you didn't see Black Widow?
We've got it on 4K. I just haven't had a
You
chance
call
to
It was a
yourself
painful
MCU
experience,
fan,
Tim.
Ambassador.
Tim, it was a painful experience and a
It
waste
was a
of my
painful
time, dude.
experience for you. It might not have been for everybody else. And
What
that's
do you
fair.
think, Tim? It's awesome.
No, I actually thought it was decent. Like the
Oh.
fact is, the major criticism is like it felt misplaced because it didn't happen before. I think that's not a good like criticism to have. Like I
That's
took
not my
it for
criticism.
like I don't know. I took it for what it was, and I actually thought it had some pretty strong points in it with like the family dynamic. But I feel like the physics of it, which is like my major criticism, like
But-
how she recovered so quickly and like
okay.
she was hitting things and
No, I hear you, Tim. But see, my philosophy is we have to admit when films suck, dude. And Black Widow was one of the worst films in the MCU we've seen. Just compare it to the other films. Right?
Yeah,
Am I
I mean-
wrong? Like Phantom Menace. I'm a big Star Wars guy. I like the prequels quite a bit, but the Phantom Menace fucking sucks. We just have to be willing to admit it.
I mean, there's
it
definitely
sucks from your perspective.
Yeah.
It sucks from your perspective. It may not suck to everybody else's. But no, I honestly, like I said, I don't regard. If you want to regard Black Widow as Phase 4, okay, fine, you can. I don't care one way or another. But as far as the the MCU shows that we've gotten so far on Disney Plus, and let's see, it's been Black Widow, we had Shang-Chi, we had Eternals, and now we've had No Way Home. That's 4 films. I would say 3 out of the 4 films, granted, I haven't seen all of them. They, except for maybe certain elements of Shang-Chi, they have been anything but formulaic for the MCU, especially with Eternals, and most definitely with this. They definitely took the formula and flipped it on its head, if not completely disregarded the Marvel formula. Because honestly, with those 2 particular films, you didn't necessarily need the Marvel formula because the fan base is already bought into the universe, and they're going to stick with the story that the MCU is telling until it either becomes unprofitable or uninteresting. But it goes to show that so many movies into this grand experiment called the MCU, they can still surprise us, especially with a movie like Far From Home, or not Far From Home, but No Way Home, excuse me. And if you take all these different pieces from past universes with the Maguire Spider-Man films, the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man films, you throw in Doctor Strange, you've got J. Jonah Jameson, and you've got a Spider-Man that we have spent the last several years with. You throw those all together into this film, and by all logic and metric, it should not work.
I agree.
It would be like a hot mess, right? Too much.
But it
Exactly.
does.
It would. Well,
But it does.
okay. Now, I will say this one thing. This was the one thing that felt jarring to me throughout the entire film. It wasn't even the beginning of the film and everything. And yes, I will make a comment. I was happy to see that we got Charlie Cox as Matt Murdock, and that this is the Matt Murdock this is the Daredevil for the MCU, and I can't wait to see what they do with him next. And we might
Perfect timing too. If we
Yes,
ever
and we'll
talk
get
about
into Hawkeye here. We'll get into Hawkeye here shortly, and everything. But I will honestly say that the journey to get Spider-Man to this point, where he is truly on his own now, he is standing on his own 2 feet, and to see all the sacrifices that he has had to make, and all the people that that have impacted him, whether it was Tony Stark or whether it was the other 2 Spider-Men or his Aunt May, and the losses that he has had to suffer. And you think about it, in the span of a few weeks or months, he has lost two of the most important people in his life, and that was obviously Tony Stark and now his aunt.
And himself.
That's something. Yeah,
Yeah.
and himself, yeah, and everything. He's had to sacrifice his own identity to preserve the entire multiverse from fracturing beyond recognition.
Well, but it's also, just imagine waking up tomorrow and your wife telling you you've been gone for 5 years. You know.
Yeah.
I want to bring up something.
Sure, Tim. Go ahead.
Some on Twitter, dude. Freaking Andrew Garfield. He got his redemption, and people that was kind of like trending on there. People want to see Andrew Garfield, Amazing Spider-Man 3, and it made me want to see Andrew Garfield.
Me too.
Because I always thought he was too cool and hipster skaterboard, but this, oh my gosh, I was like, man, I feel
redeemed Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Yeah, it was great.
Thanks, Tim.
Yeah,
it's like I get the whole thing. It's like you want to see something that's not going to happen, right?
Yeah.
But is it going to be as good as something like this? We've got the Tom movies. Is a fourth Toby movie or a third Andrew movie going to be as good as something like this? No.
Yeah.
No.
It was a nice
Is it really worth it?
I think they're better off making crossover appearances.
But I get what you're saying.
I can see Andrew maybe being like the Spider-Man of the Sonyverse, maybe like him and like Tom Hardy's Venom crossing over. But him getting a third movie, I would like to see him get a third movie to complete that trilogy at least, so everyone has a trilogy. I don't know if it's gonna happen, but I can definitely.
I agree with you.
Crossing over with other Sonyverse characters, because it was supposed to be his Spider-Man that the Sonyverse was supposed to begin with. Amazing Spider-Man 2 was supposed to kick off that universe, not Venom.
Did you guys find it interesting the fact that they didn't use like Tom Holland's universe villains? They used like other universe villains to kind of like,
I found it to be a highlight, man.
Yes. Well, here's the thing though. Vulture is in prison.
Yeah.
And Mysterio is dead.
Yeah.
I did think there's a chance that Mysterio could have faked his death and possibly been in this movie, but that's been proven wrong.
I wanted the Vulture.
I was expecting some other villain. Oh, good.
Well, if you think about it, Spider-Man has a rogues gallery that is quite.
Scorpion could have been in it, but because technically,
but they haven't.
Yes.
But the only issue is they haven't introduced the Scorpion yet, and we know
No, Mark Gargan
that
was
would have been
Homecoming.
too shoehorned in at the last moment to try and make it
Thank
work.
God we didn't have fucking Paul Giamatti's Rhino.
I knew you were going to say that. I knew you were going to say that. That's great.
I have heard horror stories about. I've had this morbid curiosity to watch Amazing Spider-Man 2, but at the same time thinking
Paul Giamatti is such a legendary actor, but that's his worst role he's ever been in. Anything I've ever seen.
He is. I like Paul too, dude. I like Paul as well.
They even cracked a joke about it. Like, there's a scene where Andrew's talking about it, and he's like, "Yeah, I have like villains. Like, there was this and he kind of like pauses for a second. He's like, "What?"
Yeah, he's like, "There's this Russian guy in a rhino suit."
So it's like that's gonna top Aliens that Toby and Tom fought.
Yeah.
I am the Rhino. Yeah. I think
Kingpin
could
would be cool.
Be in the next trilogy.
Well,
Mark Gargan does exist, because he was asking Vulture for Spider-Man's identity, and now that he's forgotten the identity, he's probably wondering that identity. And Jameson, that is a perfect setup right there, because Jameson played a role in Scorpion's origin.
Well, Jameson's he's turned into a creepy dude, man. He's like an internet fucking slime ball.
This Jameson right now, he would definitely get this Scorpion Matt Gargan out of jail and make him turn into Scorpion, go after Spider-Man. This Jameson definitely would.
Probably. Because he is that bat crap crazy.
I will say this too. I would say that Michael Keaton, I would have loved to see him in the film. It's, The film is great. I really like the movie, guys, but I would have loved to see Michael Keaton. I mean, in preparation for watching this, I actually went back and saw the other two films, and Michael Keaton's scene with Peter in the car, where he finds out that Peter is Spider-Man, is a badass fucking scene. I mean, Michael Keaton is creepy, dude.
Yo, at
Michael
one point he
Keaton
was
has
about
always
to
been
go
a
full
solid
on
actor.
Beetlejuice.
Michael
Yeah,
Keaton
Daniel,
has
that's a good point.
always been a very solid actor ever since he first got started, and I'm happy to see him working again. I'll be interested to see his little cameo in Morbius.
Remember what the?
Does he?
Yes.
Is he playing the
He's
Vulture?
Morbius. He's gonna be Morbius. Yes.
He has a small cameo. It's actually when they're in prison or something. And
Shit!
And he
will
did
have-
film more
he has-
stuff like 2 weeks ago for something unannounced.
Dude, I can't wait to see him as Bruce, dog, in the Flash.
I don't know about that movie.
Oh, what? Michael Keaton has
I'm
never
a little
let me down,
skeptic, to
man.
be honest.
Michael Keaton has never let me down. That's all I can tell you.
Well,
dude.
Michael Keaton has never let me
Despite that
down
flashpoint.
either. But here's the thing: It's kind of okay to go off a bit of on a bit of a tangent here. They dropped the trailer for Fantastic Beasts 3: The Secrets of Dumbledore.
Oh God!
Yeah.
I was like, I don't give a
Sure.
rat's
fuck.
ass about this movie. I am so completely and utterly apathetic to this movie. I didn't even see the other two. It's how much how completely uninvested
I saw the
am.
first one, and after that, you couldn't pay me to see any of the other ones.
No, I am just, and
It
it's
sucks.
kind of this. It's kind of
They
the
suck.
same deal. It's kind of the same deal with the Flash movie. Now, here's the thing: the character of the Flash is okay. He is kind of an interesting character, but can he carry his own movie? I
No.
think the fact that you've had to bring in both Ben Affleck and Michael Keaton's Batman
Is Ben Affleck
characters for this movie,
Yeah, Ben's
kind
in
of
it, yes.
speaks to the fact that no, the Flash cannot carry his own stinking movie.
And that's a
the
mistake
thing,
because I
man.
think Flash is the type of character can.
Here's the thing with me in the Flash. Ezra Miller, he only just recently got me sold on him being Flash in the Snyder Cut. Like, the thing is like Ezra Miller, I just don't know if he can carry a movie by himself.
That's
I'm not saying he's not a bad actor, but it's like, what are people more excited about? The things that he's surrounded by, Michael Keaton, Ben Affleck returning. Like, those are the things that people are excited about, not just because they're Batman, but they're Batman that people love.
Yeah,
He's one
Deadline
of
just
those-
have a strong
confirmed.
connection to. Because there are people out there that like Batfleck. I'm not saying I dislike Batfleck, but for me, I think the hype around Batfleck is a little much, honestly.
I think passion is going to
It's a
surpass him.
cult. It's
Yeah.
a cult. There's a cult surrounding Zack
I have a
Snyder.
feeling. I have a feeling.
And it's
I have
a
a
cult.
feeling. Passion-
And if you take a look at the actual opinions of the public, they disagree with the cult. I mean, you have
Yes,
a
you're
group
right,
of
Zach. Yeah.
maybe 20% of fans who are into that shit,
Now,
but
as
the other
far as-
80% doesn't agree with it.
Release
In
Snyder
terms of
Cut.
Ezra Miller, to me, he's one of those celebrities that's more of a social media celebrity, social media actor. He's not one of those guys. Like I mean, I had a conversation about this today actually with a friend of mine, and we were talking about like old school actors like Nicholson and these guys. These were guys that didn't have to post shit to social media or put out press releases or go on talk shows. Nicholson has never given a single fucking interview. He's never been on a talk show. They didn't have to do it because their work spoke for itself.
Exactly.
It's kind of interesting how that's flipped.
I agree with you. They gotta I'll try to keep it face value, but they gotta appeal to a certain audience or check boxes or whatever without like their performances, their art
But
of
the studios,
work.
it's in the studio's contract with them. They have to go on these shows to promote
Yeah,
the
but
movies now.
what Zach is talking about, they don't have to make these certain posts online,
On Twitter,
right?
that's true. Untrue.
Like Adam
That's true
Driver
on
don't
Twitter.
even have a Twitter or Instagram or anything like that. Like certain
Good
actors
for
don't
him,
even
man.
have that.
But
So,
they
like-
have to on talk shows. They have to because that's in the contract.
which is fine. Which
Well,
is
it
fine,
depends
but
on
they-
who you are, Aaron.
But
I
but
mean,
also like
you guys don't think it's insane that Nicholson's never done a single interview ever in his entire life?
I mean, that's great. Like,
Mm.
no,
Isn't
it's
that
like,
crazy though?
yeah, if I was ever like an A-list star, I would like wouldn't be posting dumb stuff on Twitter, like, attacking people. You got to keep it face value because, you're promoting your brand. You never want to divide your audience.
Maybe he was too
So,
stoned throughout the years to do
yeah,
an
too
interview.
what
stoned.
kills me with
That's
with Ezra is how he came to fandom like looking like he's trying to be John Lennon with a choker on. It's like what
And
the
look
heck?
at
Started.
Joe
What
Pesci.
the heck?
Look at Joe Pesci. He's done maybe 2 or 3 over the years
Yeah.
in his
Yeah.
45-year career or whatever he's had.
Oh.
The old school guys, the Lee Strasberg guys. Lee Strasberg, of course, famous from the Godfather 2. He played the guy who betrayed Al Pacino.
Mhm.
Strasberg trained all these old school guys. Like, take a look at Pacino, De Niro, Jack. All of them were influenced by Strasberg. Marlon Brando, James Caan, Robert Duvall. We just are living in a different age.
Yeah.
It's,
I mean,
it's
look
kind
at
of weird. Yeah,
look
to
at
see
Keanu Reeves.
over the years that thing changed, the difference, materialize. Where now every actor has to be given these stupid interviews. Who the fuck? If you're a famous actor, how much do they got to pay you to do a show like James Corden? I mean, they'd have to give me like 10 grand to do something like that.
I do want to address Daniel's comment here. I don't think the gap is so large between No Way Home and the Flash movie. Without the other two Spider-Man and the villains from the other movies, would have been just another Tom Holland movie. Daniel, you have your right to your opinion here. I'm not gonna dispute that. But here's the thing with No Way Home. This is the culmination of a journey that started all the way back in Civil War, or you could say maybe just started back in Homecoming. And when you add in all these other different elements, it makes sense to the overall narrative of the story that they're trying to tell in No Way Home. They weren't necessarily shoehorned in, and it feel that all these additions feel organic to the movie that they're trying to tell. Not to mention, all these characters play off each other very, very, very nicely. The dynamic of them being together in this universe makes sense. Now, I'm not trying to be unfair or mean or anything to the Flash movie and the people working on it, but the thing for me is, I think, honestly, yes, I think Tom Holland as Spider-Man, he can carry a movie on his own. Because he is, I think, a very dynamic and a very strong performer and everything as an actor. So I think giving him the right story and the right direction, he can carry a movie on his own. Now, we'll have to see what happens with the next trilogy of movies that revolve around his college years or whatever. But with the Flash movie, okay, let's put it this way. Who is the more iconic character? Spider-Man or the Flash? I think
Spider-Man, obviously.
I think everybody across the board is going to say Spider-Man. People are going to go in droves to see a Spider-Man movie because Spider-Man is a
It depends.
beloved.
In March, Batman. It's kind of the same thing as Spider-Man.
If it's a good concept like this, people will go and see it. But
I think
for me, it depends, dude.
Well, and that's fair, but the thing is, too, if you're going on just brand recognition or name recognition for the character, the general public will go see a Spider-Man in a heartbeat, or a Spider-Man movie in a heartbeat. People are gonna be like, the Flash. Maybe I'll wait for home video, or maybe I'll just pass.
The Flash is not quite there yet. I mean, the CW show overpassed Arrow easily, but like then it kind of went downhill. And I stopped. I was like, I just stopped watching because everyone has superpower. Everyone's a Flash now.
What about when they pulled out the lightsabers, Tim?
Oh yeah.
That was
Don't get me
crazy
started on
shit,
that.
bro.
You will get me going into a geeker rage.
But I want
so
to add
even
on to what you were saying, Ambassador. As far as like no one character felt forced. Sure, we haven't seen this Flash movie. It will cool this. The only reason why I even care about this movie is Michael Keaton, for example. But this, I like I would see it despite Toby and Andrew not seeing it. It's obviously a good build up or a decent enough consistent universe. But I felt like each person was woven in the plot nice enough where it didn't feel forced. I actually thought that Ned was too forced in there, and maybe some Zendaya at the first, but I saw what they were doing narratively for the plot, what was kind of happened towards the end. They were really plugging No Way Home. It's even in the title, which felt relative. It was all cohesive within itself.
Well, let me ask you this. I did a poll before you got here, Tim, of everybody in terms of Doc Ock. Nobody gave 100% on him. I got 90s and I got 85%. Myself, 85% as well.
Well, the only reason
Tim, how do you feel about Doc Ock? For me, he was a tad bit off. I was trying to gauge everybody on Doc Ock.
Well, I'll be honest. He did feel a little bit misplaced, but I mean, they kind of to me, a little bit. They explained it with Electro because he's like, oh, this power is different because it's a different universe. Right, he's like maybe it was the arc reactor because that energy was more intense. I think that's maybe that's a different situation. But I did feel like he was out of place, and I feel like because the MCU universe is far different in tone compared to any Sony movie. Like if you look at the Venom, Let There Be Carnage, and even the first Venom movie, the tones are two totally different things. I mean, this felt out of not necessarily the typical Marvel movie, but there's always going to be that element of cheese with Marvel movies. Obviously, some of the jokes didn't land. And I had issues with Ned being able to do the circle thing, and oh look, my family could do magic. 40 minutes later, I can do magic.
For me though, it's Willem Dafoe for me was 100%. Jamie Foxx was 100%. Toby felt 100%. Andrew felt 100% in terms of what they were doing. And Ock felt like an 85%. He felt a little too comedic for me. Yeah, although I liked him. I did like him, but it wasn't a perfect match.
I felt like they didn't know what to do with him, right? Like how you would act in that scenario. Because he's a more sophisticated man. He's very fond of Peter, but this is not the same Peter.
He's a scientist. He's confused.
Yeah.
Well, I'm saying the performance, really, and maybe the direction. He was just a little bit off.
Well, in fairness, Alfred Molina's Doc Ock is always held in high regard. And it's I felt like at times they had to kind of play him safe because it's what do you do that does not upset the fan base and undo all the work they put into this character in Spider-Man 2?
Well, I guess Evil Ock, after he came back to being, the Professor Octavius, he felt 100%. But the evil version was a little bit not quite there for me.
He was not as evil. He was more conflicted, right?
I think it was a level of frustration because of all the changes that were around him going on, and it's he's seeing all the people that he thinks should be dead, and these new versions of characters, and it's it's probably a little too much for him, and obviously the voices in his head.
Well, I don't mean to make a big deal out of it or anything, but for me, it was just a little bit off kilter. But pretty close. I rooted for him, once he had come back, but the evil version was a little fucked up, I thought, but not in a significant way.
No, he's such a great actor. And I get what you're saying. And he was actually more so Spider-Man 2 might be probably my favorite Spider-Man film of all time, just because him and I don't know, it just other reasons. I don't want to get off topic, but yeah, I understand.
So what would you say out of 100, Tim?
I would say 90 to 87%. I obviously gave a good performance, but he just, I feel like they didn't know where to go with him. But there is an element where he is confused, but I felt like he was a little bit not as evil. I felt like he was the confusion almost took him out of like being evil, like where he was
More like he was
assessing the
irritated.
situation. Yeah, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I do want to at least touch on. We've been talking about Spider-Man for the last 3 hours, roughly. I do want to. Don't get me wrong. I've enjoyed the conversation immensely. We make. I might do another. I might do a follow-up stream on Spider-Man after seeing it again in a week or so and everything. But I do want to touch on. I want to touch on Hawkeye at least for a few minutes because we are, like I said, closing out on 3 hours and everything. And I don't want to do a false advertise. I do want to cover what's in the thing. So I'd say give maybe another 15-20 minutes. We'll discuss this episode of Hawkeye, and then we'll wrap things up. So
Ambassador, I got to bounce because I have not seen this episode. I have not seen one episode.
That's
yet.
fine.
Tim. Tim, don't do it, man. There's no reason to do it. Hawkeye sucks, dude.
Zach,
I want to watch it. I want to watch it so bad, but I don't have a motivation.
Is a loser character, Tim.
You're a loser. Shut up, Zach.
Well,
but no, I will binge watch
I'm still no Hawkeye though.
Like I'm gonna binge watch it. I promise for this 6 episodes, Ambassador.
Okay.
Okay. Right. I promise when I come back next week, or you can do it on Saturday, I will catch up. But
I will not be streaming next Saturday because next Saturday is Christmas, and I don't stream on holidays.
Okay,
that's my rule.
It's a day for
family.
family.
I'm going to be watching when I get off here. It's not Hawkeye. I'm going to be watching Dexter.
Okay, I go watch Dexter, and I hope you enjoy it. So,
all right. Well, thank you for having me, Ambassador. I had a great time. Thanks, man.
Zach, anytime, bud.
Take care,
Good
Zach.
to see you.
It was great talking to you again, man.
Hey, you too, George.
See you, Zach.
Good seeing everybody.
It's been a while, guys. Zach.
Take care.
Later.
Take care.
Yep,
yeah,
good to see
Tim.
All right, guys. Peace out.
So, all right. And like I said, we're going to give, like I said, I just want to do like maybe 15, 20 minutes on Hawkeye. And then, like I said, we'll wrap up. So, whoever wants to open up the discussion, the floor is yours.
I'll bounce out here real quick because I have not seen it. But I am doing Spider-Man stream tomorrow. If you want to join, let me know. I'm going at 8 p.m., a little bit earlier than my normal time.
Is that Eastern? Is that Eastern or Central?
Eastern.
Okay,
and
so
Scott,
I'll let you know, Tim. I'll let you know. I think you're in. Aren't you in the Hall of Justice chat room on Twitter?
Yeah.
Okay, if you want to just drop the link in there or whatever, for anybody that might want to, well, you know the rule. You can drop the link in there, and if I'm free, I'll pop in.
Yeah. So far, we got like 7 people joining. So
excellent.
Like Scotty's going to be there.
From Phantasmagorium.
Right? Yeah.
Oh, I'll definitely try and be there. That guy is just, yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. But you're all welcome. Thanks for having me on, Ambassador. This is always a great talk. 3 hours later, phenomenal. Take it easy, everyone.
You too, bud. I'll talk to you later.
See you too, Tim.
Yep.
Oh, Ambassador, can I ask this question before we go into Hawkeye for a moment?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, about your comment about MJ or Michelle Jones. So you're saying before that she's a new version of Mary Jane Watson. I just need to get your perspective on that before we go to Hawkeye.
Well, here's the thing. I think it would be too confusing because here's the thing. I think the Mary Jane that we got with these films is somewhat reminiscent of the Mary Jane that we're accustomed to in or what we've seen before in terms of the Mary Jane from like from Tobey's Spider-Man films and everything. Granted, she's got somewhat of a different dynamic, but here's the thing too. I think with so many different other love interests that they could potentially have for Peter going forward, I think Gwen Stacy, I think even if they don't have it be Spider-Gwen, if it's just a regular Gwen Stacy, I think that's a great idea. I mean, obviously you're going to have a hard time topping Emma Stone as Gwen Stacy from the Amazing Spider-Man films, because I will say this, I love Emma Stone. She was the highlight of the Amazing Spider-Man films for me, at least for the first one that I actually saw. So they're going to have to get somebody that's. I'm not saying they couldn't have Mary Jane Watson and have it be a different MJ altogether, but it could be potentially somewhat confusing. But again, it's Marvel; they could always figure out a way to do it. So
Yeah, because personally for me though, because I always think that back then, like Michelle Jones or Michelle Jones Watson, that they forcefully like put a last name on it was like a different like name, and I had a feeling that maybe Mary Jane could exist or something, because I mean, because in my opinion, like by the end of the next trilogy, I think like Peter Parker should get a happy ending, married and past the mental. I mean, that's kind of like my thing, but you can disagree with me with that all you want. Yeah, but for me, I think like there's got to be a Mary Jane Watson, the Mary Jane Watson, before before like she exists, or before Michelle, like after Michelle Jones. So yeah, for me, like not to go on fanfic on this next trilogy, because I'm passionate about this, because I just hope like Peter Parker gets a happy ending, at least married and passed on the mantle to Miles Morales or maybe Gwen Stacy. Who knows?
Yeah, and I would be completely cool with that myself. I mean, quite literally, with what they've done with No Way Home, the board is completely totally open for him to do whatever they want to do at this point. So the sky the sky is literally the limit for Spider-Man going forward. So whatever they end up doing, they have not given me any cause to not lose faith in them yet, in how they've handled the Spider-Man, and until they prove to me otherwise that I should not trust what they're doing, I will wait and see. I will be justifiably optimistic until they prove to me otherwise. So, but to kind of just jump into the latest episode of Hawkeye, they keep you guessing with how these episodes are going to go, because we open with Yelena on a mission, and she goes through the snap.
Yeah.
And then she gets blipped. And she's trying to figure out what the hell's going on. Now, I have to say the highlight of this episode for me was the conversation between her and
me too.
Was
over macaroni.
And she keeps talking about the macaroni. You really should try the macaroni. Now, here's the thing. This is my first introduction to Yelena Romanoff, or Yelena. What's her last name? Is it Romanoff?
Belova.
Okay. Because like I said, I have not had a chance to watch Black Widow yet, and and honestly, I absolutely enjoyed that conversation, and the fact that she's like, you've kind of set up this guy as a hero in your mind, where he has done some very less than reputable things, but here's the thing: he's done things that are justifiable to a lot of people, and particularly in his own mind, he's been taking out people that are involved in organized crime, and that's not a good thing. Not to mention the conversation between Maya and Yazi, and not to mention the conversation between Maya and Clint. And spoilers for those of you that haven't watched this episode of Hawkeye, I'm assuming everybody has. And the fact that he reveals that
somebody tipped him off.
Yeah, that somebody tipped him off about the tracksuits being there, and we get the impression that it was Yazi that tipped off Ronan or Clint about that meeting. So, and just want to say to the chat, Daniel Martin, you have a good night as well, man, and we'll catch you next time. And hey, Daniel, if you're still in the chat, go check out Hawkeye, and because I think honestly you would probably enjoy it. So I know I have most certainly been, but Guys, your thoughts on either one of those conversations from this episode of Hawkeye?
Here,
I'll go
start with
first. Wait, who wants to go first?
Oh, Ferris, you can go first.
Would you excuse me for that? Maybe George should go first.
Okay, that's fine. Go ahead, George.
So yeah, this baseball. First of all, this episode reaffirmed like how I feel about Yelena, which is she is the best new character, one of the best new characters in Phase 4 so far. Like she was, in my opinion, the best part about Black Widow, because like with her childlike, funny personality comes like the deadly assassin that, when push comes to shove, will kill. And the fact and like the chemistry like between her and Kate Bishop, I can tell is off to a great start, and I feel like this is going to be an interesting dynamic duo going into the next phase of the MCU. And the surprise at the end where another legacy character comes
Just
back
go ahead
into
and
the
say
fray, the Kingpin. And you know how before like we were talking about like we're interested in what characters like Spider-Man's going to interact with. This is one that I hope happens. This version of Kingpin with Spider-Man, because this is an iconic Kingpin, and like Marvel fans are just eating good this week. And
Yes,
episode
we
6
are.
is gonna be the longest episode, 59 minutes. They got a lot to cover in the next episode.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do. But you know, yeah, we Marvel fans have been eating very well this week, and I will say it, Marvel has hit the trifecta. They hit the hat trick, because you had a great episode of of Hawkeye, and then of course you had the absolute, I would say, extremely well received No Way Home. So, and not to mention, you know, they have quite literally set up the possibility of a team up between Daredevil and Spider-Man now. Because while everybody forgets who Peter Parker is, not everybody forgets who Spider-Man is, because with that one line of dialogue from that last broadcast that we see in No Way Home from Jameson, Spider-Man still exists. Everybody knows who Spider-Man is. But not everybody remembers that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. So with Hawkeye and having the Kingpin and it being the Charlie Cox Kingpin of Vincent D'Onofrio, they have connected those two universes now to where you could have a team up between Spider-Man and Daredevil going up against the Kingpin, and that for me is going to be freaking awesome as hell.
So anyway, guys, your thoughts.
I'll go next. So in my opinion, like last week, like since we got like Hawkeye, I've been like trying to like figure out where like Clint's journey going through, and I think like throughout this whole series, I think he's gonna I think he's totally going to like fix his mistakes, during like the whole snap or during the blip. So I think like he's going to like fix his mistake, and soon like Kingpin will show up, and maybe like I don't know, maybe he like Daredevil could appear or something. I think like for me, if somehow like Kingpin plays a big part in next episode, like I'm really hyped to see like where his character is going to go, because like we got Charlie Cox back, we got Vincent D'Onofrio back. So as soon as it goes on, I think like maybe sooner or later, like the Marvel Netflix characters are going to be back too. Probably minus Iron Fist. I don't know, because I'm not really a fan of the show, to be honest.
I agree with you on Iron Fist. So my take on this, I love this episode. I mean, I wasn't a big fan of episode 4, but this episode I really loved. I mean, from beginning to end, everything was great. Like the snap when you believe it was in the Yelena was in the bathroom, was split, and 5 years later, she comes back in the same bathroom and she sees that the person she's trying to fix, all of a sudden is married with an adopted kid, and then he had that confrontation, that discussion between her and Kate, and you just know in the future MCU. They're gonna be like a duel, like together, working together. And you could tell just by that dialogue, and the macaroni stuff is hilarious. And I did love the confrontation between him and Clint and Maya. It was supposed to be just him and Maya, but but unfortunately, Jack Murphy was there, and he did reveal to Maya that somebody tipped him off. It could have been her boss. It could have been the second in command, the lieutenant. And then she escapes, right? And she talks to is it Kazi? Was it
Kazi? Yeah, Kazi.
Kazi. Yes, Kazi. Talks to Kazi. Says, "Why weren't you at the meeting?" Right? So she's starting to think maybe Kazi is the one that betrayed him, which is possible because Kazi is a criminal. Like is a criminal, and Maya Lopez Echo does become a good guy eventually in the comics.
Yeah, because isn't there supposed to be an Echo Disney Plus series where she is essentially
yes, there will be,
and she is a love interest.
Doesn't she flip? Doesn't she become a hero?
She's a love interest of Daredevil. Yes, she does become a love interest of Daredevil in the comics. So that's possible, and this may tie into Daredevil. And I love the ending where Melina reveals who hired her. I thought it was like. We all thought, oh, you didn't see this ambassador because you didn't see Black Widow, but I know Ferris and George saw us. We all thought it was Elaine Bannis's character who hired her, but no, it's Eleanor Bishop and Kingpin who might have hired. Yeah, hired her.
All right, I want to do just a little bit of a deep dive, just real quick. With Hawkeye and with Shang-Chi, and now with the introduction of Charlie Cox into the MCU. Do you think we're building towards some sort of organized crime war in the MCU?
Yes.
I mean,
that's never been done before.
Has it been done in the MCU? Yes.
That's never been done in the MCU. Because we're kind of like going into we're kind of going into street level now. I mean, there's probably still going to be space adventures and stuff, but there's going to be like street level. It goes the same thing with Spider-Man. Nobody like Peter Parker Spider-Man, so he's going back to traditional Spider-Man roots where he's like a vigilante.
Yeah, the Avengers could deal with whatever. The Avengers could deal with world threats, and Spider-Man, Daredevil, Hawkeye, they could deal with street level crime, stuff like that.
Yeah, and you could even here's the crazy thing too. If you think about it, there have been instances where Spider-Man has been in those bigger conflicts, those more cosmic or multidimensional conflicts as well. Because look at one of his where he got the black suit, and that was, of course, in Secret Wars. And you can still have the street level heroes be involved in these bigger stories, but more in a more supporting role rather than the main focus. But yeah, I get the distinct impression that we're going to be seeing a big conflict between all these different organized crime groups, like, for heaven's sake, Kingpin and the Tracksuit Mafia and all his associates and the 10 Rings, and so
the hand from if Electro's in, you get the hand.
Yeah, potentially, and for heaven's sakes,
we got if Hammerhead, his gang.
Hammerhead from
if you have Mr. Negative, the dragons are
again. But the thing is, they're going to have to introduce those characters first before you.
I'm just giving you ideas.
I got what you're saying. Well, I go ahead, George. Sorry.
I think street crime is going to become more common because, like, if you look at like the blimp and like what has happened, like I think the Kingpin, like the blip was a good opportunity. Like the snap was a good opportunity. Because what if like Daredevil was wiped out in those 5 years, but not Kingpin, and he built up his like crime empire once again? Like we don't really know what went on in the 5 years, like with some of these gang wars, these criminals, these mobsters.
Tim, that's a great. George has a great.
Because point. Also remember, Spider-Man was also gone, so like there is no one. So who was protecting New York in those 5 years from these mobsters and criminals?
Nobody. Well, Ronin. Obviously, but he was
Ronin was.
But outside of Ronin, like who that has like a good moral compass at the moment is like stopping these criminals?
Nobody really.
That's a good point.
But did She-Hulk get blip or something?
Like, what did the Avengers do during the 5 years? What did Natasha? What did Captain America? What did Iron Man? What did those guys do during the 5 years? Nothing, as we know.
Well, Iron Man was off in deep space for one thing. He was like several billion light years away from Earth,
And he was raising Morgan Stark.
Oh, that too. Yeah, when he finally got home, obviously. So, but you know, yeah, but you know, I have to say, you know, as a Marvel fan, all the different stuff that they're building up with both the MCU shows and now the movies, we're going to be in good for a while because you're going to have the big cosmic level threat like stuff like what we saw in the Celestials and in WandaVision and Loki and so on. But you're going to have really good street level stuff as well, and the more international espionage type stuff like with Falcon, Winter Soldier, and so on. And now you've got the street level, like organized crime fight, like almost organized crime drama level of the MCU.
Mm-hmm.
So
I would love to see that direction in the MCU. Like
I do too. I think that's also the direction that they're going to go in. And shout to the chat, name I've honestly never seen before, Jason Vanity. Jason, good to see you. Loki and the shows and the movies go so hard. You're not wrong, man. I think he's meant to say Loki, as in Loki, the character, obviously. But yeah, honestly, this episode, I think it's a good build up for the finale. I wasn't aware that the last episode is going to be an hour long, and well, hey, okay, cool, because I say this jokingly because I imagine Zach will catch the replay of this. Contrary to what Mr. Zach Leary has to say, Hawkeye is actually, I think, a really cool character, a really interesting character, and has a lot going for him. Not to mention he's a skilled ass archer and probably put an arrow in Zach's ass. And Zach, I say that in love, my man.
Yo, this is my second favorite show after Loki, as of right now.
Okay.
I actually like Falcon and Winter Soldier more.
Oh, yeah. Hey. So, but okay, I give to not the character. I mean, the people wrote this era off, but quality wise, it slaps as good as ever. Better than Phase 1 and 2. Okay, Jason. Yeah, I hear you, man. And Jason, like I said, I don't think I've ever seen you pop up in my chat. So glad to see you here, and hope you. We're gonna be wrapping up shortly, but if you catch the replay, be sure to leave your comments with what we discussed tonight and everything down yonder in the comment section, and hope to see you again. So, but yeah, honestly, I will be going. I will do a live stream. I'll do an R&D on the season, the finale for Hawkeye. Not sure when I'll do that. I'll definitely do it sometime this week because, like I said, with Saturday being Christmas, I will not be streaming. I might do a little something on Christmas Eve. I'm not sure just yet. Just depends on what we've got going on with the family and everything. But I'm looking forward to being back with y'all next week. So, guys, I'm going to let you all have your final thoughts on either Hawkeye or Spider-Man, and then we will call it a night. So the floor is yours.
I'll go first. So, Spider-Man No Way Home, I think, like, out of all the 3 home trilogies, this is probably easily my favorite one because this is, like, basically a live-action Spider-Verse, and also it's a jab to one of the worst Spider-Man stories ever, and I'm talking about One More Day. No Mephisto, just Doctor Strange. So yeah, easily just jab him on the throat or jab him in the face or whatever. And Hawkeye, I'm really looking forward to where the character goes. So we're gonna be having a crime organization in the MCU, and I cannot wait where this where this story would go on, and I cannot wait to see like what they're gonna do with Kingpin or with Charlie Cox's Daredevil. So. So technically, it could be like canon to Netflix. I don't know. Maybe it could, have a little bit of erased from something from the past, or I don't know. But I'm really excited. I mean, last week we got something good to eat from Marvel, and now like I'm really excited where the direction is gonna go, especially and knowing the fact that Tom Holland is going back to traditional Spider-Man.
Yes.
And for Hawkeye, I cannot wait what the finale is. It's about like finally passing the torch from the Hawkeye name to Kate Bishop, and finally like going into her own journey, or maybe building a team, or probably teasing Young Avengers. I don't care. I'm really excited for it. So yeah, that's to me.
Well said, Ferris. George, Aaron.
With Spider-Man No Way Home, I got a lot of vibes that felt similar. Like this felt like the Dark Knight of Spider-Man films, in it that like he had a villain that pushed him to a certain limit. That, like I said, the interrogation scene, I got vibes from the Dark Knight interrogation scene with Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin at certain points, and at the end of the film, like Spider-Man saves the day, but at a cost, and it's like he wins, but he doesn't win at the same time, similar to the Dark Knight. So like this was a push over the edge film that I think has changed the character in ways that we have never seen. And with Hawkeye, Hawkeye, I feel like is just getting better and better, and I can't wait to see what the Kingpin does in the next episode.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, for me, these 2 days this week. Well, okay, this week we got Hawkeye, Spider-Man No Way Home, the reveal of 2 characters from the Netflix series, Daredevil and Kingpin. It's not a coincidence. Obviously,
No.
If anybody says it's a coincidence, I'm telling them they're a freaking liar. There's no other way. It's a fact. It's not a coincidence. This is a bright future of Marvel from Spider-Man No Way Home. A new chapter for Tom Holland Spider-Man. That he's more of a single character now. There's a new direction where he doesn't have to rely on mentors. And the next trilogy is upon us, and we'll see where we go from there. Hawkeye season finale. Now we know who the real big bad is.
Mm-hmm.
Kingpin. He probably is not going to be. He's not. I'll say this. I don't know if it's gonna be. I don't know. Okay, maybe I should rephrase. I don't know if it's gonna be really the big bad. He just revealed, because I think he's not gonna. I don't think he's gonna go to jail. The probably somebody I think that. Oh, I forgot to say it's a Jack Duquesne thing, getting arrested. I forgot to say that. I think that's red herring right there. There's something up with that. I'm suspicious about that arrest. Because remember he got arrested, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think there's something suspicious about that. Kingpin, I think we're gonna see. I'm sure we're gonna see Echo series, and we're see Kingpin. I think Daredevil is most likely gonna happen with either a show and MCU. I think if I had to do a Daredevil thing, I'd make it a movie.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least lead up to a movie, because I think Daredevil's the type of character you need a film for.
I agree with that.
And then we get to Echo. Maybe, but you should. Oh, they're not going to do it because Echo. I don't know what their plans for Echo is, but maybe Hawkeye, Daredevil movie, the Echo series, or stuff like that, or have Echo being the Daredevil movie, or I don't know, Elektra. I don't know. I agree with you, Ferris. We might end up with some more from the Netflix. I don't think it's gonna be Iron Fist. I personally don't think Punisher's coming in. I think they're if they want them to come in, they're gonna have to work they're gonna have to figure out ways how to work that character. Elektra.
Yep.
Elektra. I don't know about the actress. The actress might be recast, but if they could get it for some movie or the show, maybe. Maybe introduce Bullseye. Maybe get Luke Cage, actor played Luke Cage. He was pretty good. I know he has his own show. So I'm just gonna say the future is the future's always been part of the MCU, but Phase 4 Phase 4 is a retooling phase. It's not a rebuilding phase where you start from scratch. It's a retooling phase where it's like phase 1 of the MCU. That's what phase 4 is. Phase 1, and it's the retooling phase where will lead to phase 2, and eventually phase 3 is like the final stages of the end of retooling.
Potentially, yeah. So, well, as for myself, I have kind of given my thoughts on both the topics for the night. But I do want to say in closing, I want to thank everybody that tuned in tonight. I want to thank everybody that was on the panel this evening. Zach Leary, Aaron of Aero World Order, Just George, Ferris, Tim's Talk, and of course my good friend MB Geek of Grandpa Geek. Guys, great discussion, and I really appreciate y'all coming on. And if you catch us on the replay, like I said, make sure you leave your comments down below with anything we brought up this evening or anything we might have missed. So, and as always, to those of you that are subscribed to the channel, that are part of this community, I appreciate y'all being here tonight, and I hope you enjoyed it. I know I enjoyed bringing it to you, and we all enjoyed having you here with us. So, but that all being said, you folks have a great week. We will see you later this week for the season finale of Hawkeye. And if I don't see you before then, have a very happy holidays and a very Merry Christmas. And until next time, these are the Ambassadors, signing off.